LoveLore Library. Chapter 341. Everyone in the crew felt a little heavy after filming this movie. Then they saw the second female lead, Tanggua, who should have been more depressed than them, smiling as she waited for Xiao Nia to feed her the ice cream. Everyone's heavy hearts disappeared at that moment. All the actors, fuck. This works too. Give me another box. After eating one box, Tanggua still felt unsatisfied. Xiao Nie refused. No. It's okay to eat one more box. Your period is coming soon. All the actors, fuck. Tanggua was surprised. You actually remember my period. Xiao Nie, are you thinking of having a baby with me? Tanggua hugged Xiao Nie's arm. So you're so sinister. You actually want to stuff a baby in my stomach. Xiao Nie, Liang Chao burst out laughing. Ha ha ha, isn't this too funny? Stuff a baby. Ha ha ha, Xiao Nie wants to secretly stuff a baby in Xiaogua's stomach. Xiao Nie's ears turned red. He coughed lightly. No such thing. But everyone didn't believe him. If it wasn't for the baby, why would he remember the date of her period so clearly? They really didn't expect Director Chiao to be such a person. It was rare for her to have some free time. Tanggua curled up on the sofa and scrolled through Weibo. She realized that there were fewer people scolding her. Of course, there were fewer people scolding Xiao Nie, which made her a little unhappy. So she moved her fingers and posted on Weibo. Why aren't you scolding me anymore? The onlooking fans, passers-by, and the anti-fans, Tang Tang is so cute, we won't scold you. Also, we are Tang Tang's fans. Passers-by, we don't have the habit of scolding people for no reason. Anti-fans, we can't be bothered to scold you. Even if we scold you, you'll still be happily showing off your love with someone. Host, this batch of anti-fans is terrible. Yes, I agree. They have no professionalism and are especially unqualified. They have no principles at all. The anti-fans were actually very depressed. They originally had many groups called Anti-Fans 1, 2, and 3. Now they only had one anti-fans group left. The 2, 3, and 4 groups had become Tang Tang's most loyal fans 2, 3, and 4. Every day, they would say, Tang Tang loves Yumwax. Tang Tang is so handsome. Mwah. Tang Tang, I'm here to sign in. Tang Tang is even more beautiful today. Tang Tang will always be my goddess, sob sob sob. In the eyes of the anti-fans, this content was an eyesore. A bunch of traitors. Father Tang and Mother Tang pulled out all the posts that had once slandered Tanggua. Other than the one about her breaking up with Su He, the rest were all unfounded. Naturally, the number of people who slandered her decreased. I really didn't expect that it would be my own people who ruined my plan. Tanggua didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she found out. But it's good to have such parents. The system confirmed that Tanggua wasn't angry. On the contrary, it liked what Father and Mother Tang did and relaxed. It was fine as long as the host was happy. Only Xiao Nie knew that Tanggua's only flaw was also fake. If everyone knew about this, would their faces hurt? He wanted to clarify, but Tanggua pushed open the door and walked into his study. She stared at the number on his phone and said, if you dare to tell Su He the truth, believe it or not, I'll make you very unhappy every day. Xiao Nie pressed the button to end the call and stood up. He led her out and said, you're on your period. You should rest more. It's easy to get angry. Tanggua was speechless. She saw that Xiao Nie was mixing brown sugar water for her and put on a smile. Aw Nie, you're so considerate. She hugged Xiao Nie's waist from behind. Tell me, do you have a motive? Chapter 342. Are you really not going to tell Suhi? Xiao Nia looked at the woman drinking water on the sofa. He should know the truth. Don't tell him. Xiao Nia was silent for a bit. Do you have a plan? Dear host, Xiao Nia is very smart. No wonder he caught your eye. If I have a plan, will you help me? Xiao Nia said without thinking, of course. Tang Guo immediately put on a smile and sat beside him. Ah Nia, why are you so nice? If he hadn't seen the woman's clear eyes, he would have thought that she had fallen in love with him. He must have owed her in his previous life, and now he owed her in this life too. I have decided to rely on you forever. Xiao Nia, are you sure? Of course, I will never find a man who can serve me so well again. Guogua has good taste. Except for this man, I am very satisfied with the rest. Tang Guo glanced at Xiao Nia and saw that his expression was unchanged. It was different from the script. It was said that when a woman said that a man couldn't do it, the man would pull her aside to prove it. I don't need to prove it. Xiao Nia said seriously. You've tried it before. Did you try it yourself or did you get someone to try it? She narrowed her eyes. Xiao Nia, there's no end to it. He touched her face. Do you really want it? You'll give it to me if I want it. Host, I think you should restrain yourself. This kind of man has such a good character, you might not be able to take it. Answer me, am I right? Xiao Nia deliberated over his words, and his eyes became more serious. Do you like me? If you are just curious and want to prove something and don't like me, I don't recommend you to have such an intimate relationship with me. Tang Guo, maybe she should reevaluate this man. She stared at him. Do you like me? Yes. Do you like me even if I don't like you? Yes. She was startled and didn't speak for a long time. I want to ruin your reputation and take revenge on you so that you can't find a woman for the rest of your life. Are you willing? Yes. As long as you are happy. Tang Guo fell silent. You remind me of someone. She returned to her seat. He always buys me different flavors of ice cream. But I've already forgotten the feeling of liking him. Host, do you want to see Wei Yu's recording? I've saved them all. Tang Guo laughed. No need, I've almost forgotten. She was indeed so heartless, forgetting so quickly. If I don't like you, Xiao Nia, are you still willing to be with me for the rest of your life? Yes, as long as you don't move out. Xiao Nia wondered if that person was Su He. If it was, he would definitely win. Tang Guo smiled. Then you can use your whole life to pay for your mistake. Maybe one day I'll fall in love with you. And you have to work hard. Tang Guo rubbed his hair and said softly, I'm more tolerant of the person I like. I'll treat him very well. Xiao Nia met Tang Guo's sincere eyes. His heart skipped a beat. He couldn't help but look forward to seeing how good she was to a person. For the first time, he had some expectations for the relationship between men and women. All right. The high school romance finally came to an end. The character of Lin Weiwei was originally very attractive. Since the start of the broadcast, she had gained countless fans. Even if she was so arrogant and proud, there were still countless people who liked her. In the last episode, Lin Weiwei slapped the male lead Qin Mo, which really made their blood boil. Chapter 343. Although Lin Weiwei is a little overbearing and sharp-tongued, she doesn't like her twin sister. But she is a person who has a clear distinction between love and hate. In the end, she chose to leave and turned around to burst into tears, which made many people feel distressed. It can be said that in this play, Lin Weiwei impressed the audience the most. Because of this play, there is a hot word, Weiwei's tears, on the internet, which means hot and unavoidable feelings. Half a year later, Chao Nie's mystery crime film, Who is the Murderer, was released. Before the release, there was no need for any publicity, and many people were looking forward to it. Unlike in the past, they went to see the movie because of Chao Nie's 2 words. This time, it was because of a female star named Tang Guo. After they saw the stills, they had to admit that Tang Guo had acting skills. When she played Lin Weiwei, she was a high school student, an all-round top student. When she played the second female lead in this play, she wore a white coat and really looked like a doctor. Before watching the movie, no one thought that the second female lead played by Tang Guo might be the murderer. Do you want to go to the movies? This is the first time that Chao Nie has taken the initiative to ask Tang Guo out. Tang Guo just came out of the bathroom, and her hair was still wet. Chao Nie seemed to understand something. He turned around and took out the hairdryer skillfully. Tang Guo's mouth hooked up. "Ah, Nie, you've improved. You don't need me to call you." Chao Nie didn't speak and carefully dried her hair. Then he pushed her into the room. "Go and change your clothes." Then he closed the door. Tang Guo opened the door and showed her small face. "You really don't want to come in and help me put it on?" Chao Nie turned around and left. He had been familiar with this woman's routine for a long time. Thinking of her smiling appearance, his eyes flashed with a smile and he sat on the sofa waiting for her. Tang Guo wore very ordinary jeans and a t-shirt. After waiting for her down, Chao Nie stood up and came to her. He put on sunglasses, cap and mask for her personally. These things almost covered the small face. After doing this, he took Tang Guo and was about to go out. "Wait a minute," Tang Guo said, staring at Chao Nie with amusement. "Did you forget something?" Seeing that Chao Nie was stunned for a moment, she turned around and ran back. A minute later, she had a cap, sunglasses, and a mask in her hand. "Fortunately, I was prepared." "Ah, Nie, have you forgotten that everyone in the country has seen your face? Others may not recognize me, but they will recognize you. If they recognize you, won't they know who I am?" Tang Guo said as she helped Chao Nie to arm himself. "Okay, we can go now." Chao Nie held Xiao Xiao's hands and recalled the feeling of her hands on his face. It was a little wonderful. The two of them arrived at the cinema. When they entered, the entire theater was filled with people. There were no empty seats. "Your movie is actually so popular. It wasn't like this in the past." He looked at the woman with his deep eyes. "Many people came for you." He held the woman's hand tightly and couldn't bear to let go. He had the urge to hold her hand forever, no matter where she was. At the beginning of the movie, it was quieter, but in the middle of the movie, there were all kinds of suspense points, which caused some people to discuss softly. When the second male lead admitted that he had killed someone heaved a sigh of relief. "I guessed it was him. It really is him." "I think you should take a look at the progress bar," another girl reminded. "The progress bar tells us that things aren't that simple." Chapter 344. Sure enough, when the people in the theater saw that there was still so much progress, they fell silent. On the day of the second male lead's trial, the case happened again. Everyone present could accept this result. However, when they saw the expression on the male lead's face change, they had a bad premonition in their hearts. When the scene changed to the rooftop and they saw that familiar back view, the audience broke down. "Fuck. It's really Gao Li, my angel, my goddess," he said. In this drama, except for the last performance, the second female lead was a smart and gentle sister the entire time. She was very different from the first female lead, who was smart, generous, and domineering. Tangua's gentle sister role warmed their hearts. When they were cleared of suspicion, they all heaved a sigh of relief. Generally speaking, the second male lead was first suspected, then cleared of suspicion, and finally arrested. He should be the real culprit. They forgot that the second female lead was also first suspected and then cleared of suspicion. Who would have thought that the result would be the same? This time, the second female lead called the police herself. There was no way to clear her name. The impact of an angel turning into a demon was simply too great. The commotion only lasted for a moment. They chose to continue watching, especially wanting to know the result. When they heard their daughter's final statement, they only heard helplessness in her tone. Young children were molested by perverted adults. Sometimes, there was no punishment at all. More serious cases might even result in a few years of imprisonment. However, the pain that was left for these children was eternal. Most children would be haunted for their entire lives. It might even affect their marriage and children in the future. It might even lead to all kinds of tragedies. Some children couldn't take it and chose to commit suicide. The second female lead, who had also been bullied by her teacher when she was young, had walked out. She didn't expect that many years later, her teacher would harass her again. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore and killed her. Using her professionalism and intelligence, she successfully avoided all detection. Later, she found some children hiding in the corner of the orphanage, trembling. The reason made her angry. Later, she was an angel during the day, warming the hearts of these children. At night, she used her high intelligence to come up with one murder plan after another. If she hadn't exposed herself in the end, this would have become an unsolved case. In the end, she told the children that murder was illegal and that she would be punished. It was her last lesson to the children. The moment she jumped down the stairs, everyone present could not help but burst into tears. Tang Tang is so despicable. Why didn't she act in the roles that made me feel the most beautiful? Why did she have to act in roles that made me cry in the end? Sob, 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 I'm so sad. That's too realistic. There's nothing we can do about it. Those perverts never get the lesson they deserve. So what if they're locked up for a few years? He's still alive even after coming out. I really pity those bullied children. After watching it, everyone in the theater wiped their tears and didn't react for a long time. When the staff came in to call them, they stood up and walked out one after another. No one knew that in the crowd, there was someone who made them cry. Xiao Nia and Tang Guo were calm the whole time, as if they were not moved by the characters in the movie. Forget about Xiao Nia. He was the one who filmed the movie, and he was the one who changed the script. No matter how touching something was, he wouldn't feel anything after seeing it too many times. You don't have any ideas? Xiao Nia asked. Tang Guo raised her head, revealing only a pair of beautiful eyes. What thoughts? About the many unfair thoughts in this world. Tang Guo smiled, lowered her eyes and said softly, no. She was probably used to it. The second female lead had chosen the same way as her. She used a self-destructive and extreme method to take revenge. Chapter 345. The box office of Who is the Murderer continued to rise. Since its release half a month ago, it had been full every day. Many people watched it twice, thrice, and finally, word of mouth spread. The film gave people a shocking feeling. Tang Guo's acting skills were also recognized by everyone because of this film. She jumped from a popular vase actress to an actress and successfully jumped out. Many people were jealous. Many people wanted to find some dirt on Tang Guo. Whether it was true or not, they wanted to release it. Unfortunately, no one bought it. Family Tang didn't need to do anything. The fans would jump out and fight back. The fiercest were not the sugar fans, but Tang was anti-fans. By the time the film was released, the box office had already reached 6 billion yuan. This figure was simply unbelievable and caused another sensation. Not long after, the film was released in various countries abroad and also caused a big sensation. Especially China, which had changed its laws several times because of a few films, also had a high evaluation of the film. The people of China felt that the second female lead's actions in the film were very satisfying, but at the same time, they felt that it was a pity. The impact of the film was something that Xiao Nia and Tang Guo did not expect. The first to be affected were the children who had been bullied, whether they were already adults, married and having children, or studying. They all stood up and wrote about their experiences, hoping that the world would be fair to them. They were once ashamed to speak, afraid of being despised by others, afraid of being threatened by those perverts, afraid that those beasts would make things difficult for them. After watching the film, they realized that they were wrong. Blindly hiding, avoiding, and escaping would only make those people rampant and proud in the end. They made mistakes, but they were not punished and did not realize their mistakes. Just like some perverts who violated young women, they would only laugh and say that it was because she was wearing revealing clothes and was too tempting. If this was not seducing them to commit a crime, what was it? Countless people even agreed with such sophistry. This was what everyone indulged in. This time, those who had been hurt when they were young no longer remained silent. The incident became more and more serious, and the dark truth gradually emerged on the harmonious surface. Many parents did not even know that their children had encountered such a thing. "Oh, and yeah, you are going to be famous this time." Tang Guo looked at the news and smiled. "I didn't expect China to change its laws because of a film. Anything is possible." Xiao Nia didn't mind. In fact, the movie's influence was so great because there was a group of outstanding actors, especially the woman in front of him. She put almost all of herself into acting, as if she was the one who wanted to seek justice for those children. Sometimes, she didn't look like a young woman in her 20s, but more like a person who had experienced countless vicissitudes and tribulations. "Why are you looking at me?" Tang Guo smiled. "I know you like me. If you want to ask me if I like you, my answer is no. You have to work hard, Anya." Xiao Nia nodded seriously. His eyes were very sincere. "I will work hard." He tried his best to make her forget the harm he had done to her and slowly began to like her. "Su He and I are half-brothers," Xiao Nia suddenly said. "After my mother got pregnant, he had another woman outside. Later, I found out that this woman had been involved with her for a long time." Chapter 346. That woman didn't have any background. She was his junior. They had always been in love. Until he took over the family business, he needed a wife with a strong background. My mother was the wife. Xiao Nia lowered his head and said lightly, after they got married, his first love came and they rekindled their old love. He thought that my mother had already married him and everything was a foregone conclusion. He turned around and recalled his lost love. Xiao Nia's eyes were full of sarcasm. My mother was a person who dared to love and hate. When she found out the truth, she had a miscarriage and gave birth to me in the hospital. She took me back to the Qiao family and divorced him soon. She was in poor health and passed away very early. Before she died, she left me a plan. Tang Guo was a little surprised. Xiao Nia pulled her into his arms and hugged her soft body. He was very satisfied and continued, "She left in a hurry and wanted to cut off the relationship between us. Plus, she was in poor health after giving birth to me. In retrospect, she didn't have an advantage in dividing the Su family's property. She made use of her last moments to write a plan for me. A plan to destroy the Su family and make the Su family bankrupt. Tangua's eyes lit up. Your mother was a ruthless person. She liked it. Xiao Nia saw the love in her eyes and felt a little satisfied. She was indeed the person he liked. According to the plan, I realized it step by step and added some private goods. The Su family couldn't resist at all. The private goods were to let Su He continue to be defeated. Xiao Nia looked serious. The only mistake was to get you involved. He touched Tangua's cheek. I don't regret it. If you didn't attack Su He, you wouldn't have left him. But you hurt me. Tangua got up from his arms. Your revenge involved an innocent person like me. Xiao Nia was stunned by Tangua's seriousness and lack of smile. I'm sorry. If sorry is useful, what is the use of the law? Look at those characters in your movies who were hurt. Those children, they were hurt. Do they only need an apology? An eye for an eye. You took revenge on Su He. It was her mother who destroyed your family. But by using me to deal with Su He, you've hurt me. Tangua said seriously, I'm the innocent one in this. Why did you agree? If I don't agree, you'll put pressure on Su He. He's the one I liked back then. Hearing this, Xiao Nia felt a bit of a heart attack. Tangua laughed. Xiao Nia, you just wanted to use the same method to take me away from Su He and make him feel pain. You don't have your father's love, but you still want to snatch away the person who treats Su He the best. You are jealous. Xiao Nia sat where he was and sank into deep thought. Alright, it's my fault. What do you want to do? He looked at her as if she could do whatever she wanted. Tangua moved in front of Xiao Nia. Since you admit your mistake with a good attitude, you have a lifetime to atone for it. Now I want to eat ice cream. Go and buy it for me. System, host, sometimes you're like a dog. Xiao Nia was stunned for a moment. He held Tangua's cold hand and refused without thinking. No, summer is almost over. Your period has just ended. You can't eat ice cream. Tangua, she glanced at Xiao Nia. His serious look made her narrow her eyes. Did we know each other in our previous lives? Chapter 347. Did I? Xiao Nia could not remember. I don't think so. Tangua chuckled. Yeah, I was just kidding. How could that be? Perhaps she was mistaken. From Leng Rui, Tang Jing, Yizhou, Wei Yu, and even Xiao Nia, she felt that there was something in common between them. Dear host, are you talking about the loyal dog attribute? As a considerate person, Lin Yiqian felt the need to help her analyze the problem. What do you see? Lin Yiqian only knew that her host was very charming. Anyone who had been seduced by her would become her loyal dog. Even someone as perverted as Leng Rui would eventually fall under her skirt. Who added this flattery attribute into your program? Tangua asked. It must have come in by itself. Be good. In a few days, I'll take you out for ice cream. Xiao Nia did not know what to do with the woman in front of him. She was already in her 20s, yet all she thought about was ice cream. Then I want to eat all of them. Xiao Nia's expression softened. Alright, I'll take you to the shop. You can put a spoonful of each into your bowl. If you really like them, you can eat them 3 times a month. Tangua was startled and quickly protested. How is 3 times a month enough? Right then, the door opened. Zhu Yi was standing at the door. When she heard the words 3 times a month, she froze on the spot. She felt as if she had been holding back for a long time. She glanced at Xiao Nia and Tangua. I didn't hear anything, she said. You can continue. I'll come back later. Then, she hurriedly opened the door and closed it with a bang. Standing at the door, Zhu Yi was shocked. So there was a reason why Director Chiao had such a bad temper. Could he only eat them 3 times a month? Zhu Yi felt that it was unfair that he could only eat them 3 times when facing her goddess. Her goddess was so good. How could he only eat her 3 times? She finally understood that when a man had a bad temper, it was very likely that he was impotent. TSK, TSK, TSK. After a moment of silence, Xiao Nye said, Little E seems to have misunderstood something. He misunderstood that you can only eat them 3 times a month. What? Tanggua could not help but laugh. She pinched his face. She thinks that you can only do it 3 times a month. If you don't satisfy me, Nye, your reputation will be ruined. How would Little E know? Lin Yiqian shook her head. Not even once. Xiao Nye was speechless. She sized up Xiao Nye and realized that he wasn't angry, but his eyes were a little gloomy. Finally, he said, Then I'll have to work hard and make Guoguo like me sooner. Xiao Nye held her hand and kissed the back of her hand sincerely. He said something very indecent. I'm also very curious how many times I can do it in a month. I really want to try it with Guoguo. His burning gaze and undisguised love seemed to be able to set people on fire. Then you have to work hard. Tanggua pulled her hand out. I haven't forgiven you yet. Tanggua stood up and returned to her room to change her clothes. When she came downstairs, she saw that Xiao Nian was still sitting on the couch. Little E must be busy. I'm going out. Let's go together. Xiao Nye followed her without hesitation. Zhu Yi stole a glance at Xiao Nye before turning to look at Tanggua. Guoguo, I'm here to inform you that you're going to receive an award. It's the Best Supporting Actress Award for High School Romance. Also, there are a lot of film offers and variety shows that have invited you. Do you have any ideas? Chapter 348. I won't participate in variety shows. In the future, I'll only act in Agne's films. Zhu Yi's eyes widened. Guoguo, you're courting death. Zhu Yi quickly reacted. Acting wasn't that important to Tanggua, right? She was the miss of the family Tang group. She used to like to be a bystander. If she didn't act, she would just leave the industry. She was different from other female stars. Zhu Yi didn't force her. If there's a film you're interested in, will you act in it? If there is, I won't refuse. As for variety shows, you can reject them all. Okay. Zhu Yi's face was bitter. She called the other party to reject her. The big star in her hands was a Mississippi. If she didn't want to act, she could go back and inherit the family property. What should she do? Forget it. If Guoguo didn't act in the future, she wouldn't do it either. She might as well go back and inherit the family property. Host, don't you want to be an international star? The system was curious. Tanggua smiled. As a singer who was popular all over the world, there's no challenge to being an international star. I've been here for nearly 2 years. There's only 11 years left. What's the point of being so tired? But I feel that something is wrong. Clearly, the host wants to torture Xiao Nye, right? Forget it, as long as she's happy. If there's a Wei Yu in every world, the host will be very happy. I wonder if this Xiao Nye can become an upgraded version of Wei Yu in the end. No one was surprised that Tanggua won the Best Supporting Actress award. Bai Wenwen and Su He also came. Bai Wenwen certainly hoped that she could win the award, but it was impossible. She was a newcomer in the entertainment industry. It was her first time playing the female lead. There were too many actors with strength and background. She didn't have a chance. Since Wei Chuan went to prison and was locked up for an indefinite period, she had no one she could rely on in the entertainment industry. Fortunately, she still had the system. Last time, she succeeded in conquering Wei Chuan and received a reward. As for Su He, she was only 1 point away from success. But when she saw Tang Guo standing on the podium with a dazzling appearance, she was a little jealous. Are all natives so powerful? She's the miss of the family Tang group. She really hit it well. Host, work hard to complete the mission. 2 targets left, Su He and Xiao Nye. Let me remind the host that Xiao Nye's luck is even richer than Su He's. If the host succeeds in defeating Xiao Nye, the host will be rewarded with a super gift bag containing permanent skills. This sentence made Bai Wenwen very excited. She had long wanted a permanent skill. However, when she thought about how she had to defeat Xiao Nye in order to obtain it, her heart sank again. Didn't Tang Guo like Su He? It is suggested that the host should find a way to let Tang Guo return to Su He's side after successfully capturing Su He. Then, the host will have a chance to capture Xiao Nye. Bai Wenwen was still uncertain. Was it possible? She wanted to do that. She liked Su He a lot, but she had already transmigrated to many worlds before this. She had long become numb to liking someone. If these people died, so be it. Even if she died, she still had to continue. What was more important to her was, of course, the big gift pack reward. She couldn't help but look at Xiao Nye, who was a few seats away. That man was focused on the woman on the podium. Just the side of his face was better looking than Su He's. She didn't know that wherever Tang Guo was, her conversation with 875 would be heard. Tang Guo walked down and glanced at Bai Wenwen. She was now fully sure that 875 should belong to the evil system. In today's words, it was a pirated system, a tool used by some people to steal luck. Congratulations, Tang Guo. Bai Wenwen said with a sincere face. Chapter 349. Tang Guo sat back in her seat. A female star next to her thought that Bai Wenwen was very good, so she gave up her seat for her. I watched Director Chiao's Who is the Murderer. It was really wonderful. Ding. Xiao Nye's favorability value is 5. Current favorability value is 95. Warning, warning, the target is about to fail. Please work hard. If the mission fails, you will be severely punished. Bai Wenwen's face turned pale. She looked at Xiao Nye in disbelief. Didn't she just praise him? Just to reduce her favorability value. 875, are you sure you're not playing with me? How can I capture such a perverted person? Just like Liang Chao, the favorability value will drop with just a praise. How can I capture him? I can't praise him. Do you want me to scold him? Bai Wenwen was really annoyed. What kind of broken world is this? Host, not working hard is not an excuse. If you don't seriously contact the target, naturally you can't get favorability value. Please work hard and complete the mission as soon as possible. At that time, Bai Wenwen wanted to curse. What kind of broken mission is this? Forget about Liang Chao. What the hell is this Xiao Nye? Tang Guo was next to her, expressionless. In fact, she was laughing crazily in her heart. She was complaining to the system, 875 doesn't seem to have a high IQ. Host, you also found it. N. She hugged Xiao Nye's arm. Xiao Nye looked down at her. He was thinking about what she would do to torment him. He heard her whisper, that Bai Wenwen is so annoying. N. Nye, Bai Wenwen wanted to seduce you just now. I won't be seduced. Anya, do you hate her? I hate her. Tang Guo was satisfied. She leaned close to his ear and said, then if you hate her a little more, I'll kiss you. Xiao Nie's whole body was stiff, but his heart was burning. He had seen too many beautiful women in this circle. Many of them had tried to seduce him, but even if those women stood in front of him without wearing anything, he was no different from looking at a statue. However, the woman next to him only said that she wanted to kiss him in his ear. His heart was beating so fast, and he was looking forward to it. Okay. After thinking for half a minute, Xiao Nie agreed. He recalled Bai Wenwen's appearance just now. Just like what Tang Guo said, she was indeed seducing him. Originally, he didn't like Bai Wenwen very much, and when he remembered that she was Su He's girlfriend, his disgust continued to increase. He didn't know how Bai Wenwen did it, but some rumors on the internet were released by Bai Wenwen. However, he did not find any evidence. For a moment, his impression of Bai Wenwen dropped to the bottom. Bai Wenwen felt that she shouldn't provoke Xiao Nie for the time being. Before she could sit down, she heard a death notification. Ding! Xiao Nie's favorability has increased by 5. Current favorability is 100. Attacking Xiao Nie has failed. Host, please prepare to receive 20 minutes of electric shock as punishment. Bai Wenwen's face turned pale at that time. The pain of the electric shock came in an instant. She fell into her seat all of a sudden. She only felt the pain in her soul. It was too painful. Damn Xiao Nie, damn it. Wasn't it just a few words of praise? Was there a need to reduce her favorability by 10 points? Damn 875. Of all things, why did she have to ask her to woo Xiao Nie? Was that man so easy to woo? Ah, it hurts. Wenwen, what's wrong? Su He saw that Bai Wenwen's whole body was twitching and her face was pale. He panicked. While talking on the phone, he held Bai Wenwen in his arms. Wenwen, I've called an ambulance. Wait a minute. Bai Wenwen bit her lip, looked at Su He in pain, and suddenly said, am I important to you? Chapter 350. Wenwen, of course you are important to me. Don't talk, hold on. Bai Wenwen gritted her teeth. Do you love me? Yes, of course I love you. A long time ago, I liked you in high school. Bai Wenwen squeezed out a smile on her face. Do you really love me? Are you willing to marry me? Su He froze for a moment. Seeing Bai Wenwen's painful appearance, he became more and more worried. He thought that Wenwen was worried that he would die. He quickly said, Wenwen, when you are better, let's get engaged. He and Bai Wenwen were originally boyfriend and girlfriend. Marriage was nothing. Moreover, he had always liked her. Their marriage would only be blessed. At this moment, he seemed to have put down Tang Guo and expelled the woman who betrayed him from his heart. Ding! Su He's favorability value was 1. Current favorability value was 100. Successful capture. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a big gift package. The gift package has been placed in the system backpack. The pain of the soul seemed to be alleviated by this sentence. Bai Wenwen's face showed a smile, which made Su He's heart relaxed. Are you better? Much better. At least she had successfully captured 2 people in this world and would not be obliterated. The pain continued until Bai Wenwen was taken away. Host, when can I swallow 875? The system was very greedy. He had a feeling that if he swallowed the other party, he would become more powerful. Tang Guo thought for a moment, wait until they get married. Oh, host, you are so bad. The awards ceremony ended. Guo Guo. Tang Guo looked at Xiao Nie strangely. What's wrong? Xiao Nie coughed lightly and took her hand. Nothing, let's go. It's very late. Host, you just promised Xiao Nie that you would kiss him. Did you forget? He was a considerate little expert. Even if the host did not remember, he remembered it clearly. Tang Guo, back at the villa, Xiao Nie sent Tang Guo to the door. He paused and turned to leave. Ah, Nie. N. Xiao Nie quickly turned around. Is there anything else? Under the mature appearance, there was a fast-beating heart. Tang Guo smiled. Her red lips parted slightly. Good night. Ah. Xiao Nie was stunned for a moment before he reacted. Good night. Who would have thought that as a director, he would be so pure? The system sighed. How could a pure and innocent guy win against an experienced driver like its host? Xiao Nie was a little disappointed. It wasn't that he didn't notice the slyness in the woman's eyes. As long as she was happy, it was fine. Ah, and I. Before Xiao Nie could react, a soft body fell into his arms. Then, something pecked his face. He looked at the smiling woman and couldn't help but kiss the back of her hand. His pitch-black eyes were extremely bright. Being looked at by such a gaze would always cause one to lose focus for a moment. Ah, Nie, I suddenly realized that you're a little cute. Tang Guo pushed Xiao Nie away, turned around, and walked back into the room. The corners of her lips curled up slightly with a very satisfied smile. Does Guoguo like me a little? Tang Guo turned around and smiled gently. She blinked and said, no. Oh. Xiao Nie had a warm smile on his face. It's okay, we still have a lifetime. Why would Guoguo kiss someone she doesn't like? Xiao Nie looked at her seriously. Tang Guo really didn't expect that this guy actually had a plan in mind. She thought for a moment and said, you're as cute as a puppy. Chapter 351. The news of Su He and Bai Wenwen's marriage quickly grabbed the headlines and successfully attracted the attention of the whole country. After Bai Wenwen was discharged from the hospital, they announced the news at the same time. For Bai Wenwen, she wanted to leave the world immediately. But the system didn't allow it. She had to spend a lifetime with Su He. She reluctantly agreed because 875 said that she could get a big gift package after spending a lifetime with him. Su He seemed to be very good to her, so she agreed to marry him. Another thing was that she couldn't accept it. Why was Tang Guo, that native, so glorious? She had some hatred for Liang Chao and Xiao Nie. She heard that Liang Chao and Xiao Nie were half-brothers, and the Su family was destroyed by Xiao Nie. She had a plan in her heart. Su He wouldn't be willing to let Xiao Nie stay in the limelight. When he was fully grown, he would definitely confront Xiao Nie. In order to take revenge for being punished by the system, Bai Wenwen would also choose to stay. After so many people, she still suffered such a big loss this time. She was unwilling to accept it. However, before she had time to think about how to deal with Xiao Nie, a nightmare came. On the day of Su He's wedding, Bai Wenwen didn't know what to think and invited Tang Guo and Xiao Nie. I'm going, why not? Xiao Nie paused. Are you sure? He was sure that Tang Guo didn't like Su He anymore. Thinking of the woman who came to him once, her eyes were full of love for Su He, he felt a little uncomfortable. Anyway, it's my first love. My first love is getting married. I must go. Xiao Nie looked at the smiling woman and helplessness flashed in his eyes. Guoguo really didn't like Su He anymore. She could even smile when he got married. How do you want to take revenge on him? Xiao Nie hugged the woman, his eyes full of love. I'll help you. Get him out of the entertainment industry, or make him notorious. No, I've already thought about what to do. Tang Guo chuckled. This kind of revenge was meaningless. The best way to take revenge on a person was to shatter his beliefs and the truth that he thought was right. On the day of the wedding, many people came. Apart from other things, Suhi's popularity in the circle was quite good. Tang Guo held Xiao Nie's hand and stood in the crowd, watching Suhi. Suhi was holding his bride by Wenwen's hand when he suddenly felt a very special gaze. He looked at the source of this line of sight and suddenly met Tang Guo's eyes. He froze for a moment. There was something in the woman's clear eyes that was no longer there. He didn't know what it was that had disappeared. In short, it made him very nervous. He was so nervous that his palms were sweating. Congratulations. Even though he was far away, he still heard her say, congratulations, but why did he feel so bad? I'm fine. Let's go. Suhi forcefully turned his head to avoid looking in that direction. The woman's gaze made him want to run away. The wedding went on smoothly. Bai Wenwen thought that Tang Guo would do something, but she didn't do anything. She held Xiao Nie's arm the entire time, receiving the adoration of many people. Her dazzling appearance made others jealous. Tongzi, do it. Tang Guo swirled the goblet. The dark red liquid inside swayed as if it would spray out at any moment. The system was very excited. It was finally time. Tang Guo couldn't feel what the confrontation between the two systems was like. After a minute, the system's excited voice sounded. Host, I'm a little full now. I need to digest. 875. What's going on? Bai Wenwen, who was toasting, stiffened and showed panic on her face. The wine spilled all over the guest. Chapter 352. Bai Wenwen made the headlines again. At the wedding banquet on the day of the wedding, she suddenly went crazy and poured wine all over the guest. It was said that this guest was a very famous director in China. He came to the wedding because Suhi had acted in his movie. He had a new movie in his hand and planned to invite Suhi to try it. Bai Wenwen's wine was a bit clever, and she successfully made Suhi lose such an opportunity. Bai Wenwen couldn't care so much. That day was like this. She was toasting with Suhi to the guests. Only when she heard the words, alert, alert, there is an enemy invasion, the sound of 875 disappeared. She quickly checked the system space and found that the system had disappeared. Her big gift bag was gone. Everything she had in it was gone. Some of the skills she had exchanged were also gone. In this world, the talent cards and acting cards she had exchanged for in this world were all invalid. How could Bai Wenwen not panic? Wasn't she able to go smoothly in every world because of these things? Now she had nothing. In fact, she didn't have any real ability. She was used to exchanging from the system. Who would have thought that the system would disappear for no reason? Suhi thought that after getting married, he would live a sweet life with the person he liked. However, in fact, this was not the case. He didn't blame Bai Wenwen for making a fool of herself that day. He just thought that the other party was sick. Later, Bai Wenwen was listless. He comforted her every day after he finished his work. Bai Wenwen said that she didn't want to act and had no interest in doing anything else. Well, he raised her and indulged her in everything. In fact, he was also panicking in his heart. He found that he could never forget the look that woman gave him at the wedding that day. It was full of deep meaning. He was afraid that Bai Wenwen would find out that he was not loyal to her, so he didn't find out that Bai Wenwen actually didn't like him that much. Compared with these two people, Tang Guo's life was much more comfortable. Host, I have digested it. I have also taken over the big gift bag mall. I found that there are quite a lot of things in it. Do you want to take a look? If you like it, I will help you take it out. You don't need to exchange. Host, you are treating me like an outsider. We are teammates. How can I use things to exchange? What is mine is yours. Well, what's mine is still mine. Tanguy smiled. System, as long as you're happy. Tanguy looked at it for a while and lost interest. She said with some disdain, I thought there would be something good. It's not as good as what I have collected. Hee, how could a pirated system compare to the items that the host had collected after traveling through so many worlds? Have you investigated the origin of 875? This 875 mission was to lure the souls of those who had just died, bind them, and bring them to various small worlds to do missions. They would absorb the fate of the children of the world and some people with good fate. They should be an organization. There were many pirated systems like the 875 system. In short, those who were successfully conquered would have their fate stolen. Therefore, this fellow shouldn't be of the same species as him, so he didn't feel any pressure swallowing him. He even leveled up. Host, after this upgrade, I discovered something. I have a slight impression of the place where I was born. Tanguy's interest was piqued. After traveling through so many worlds, this was the first time he heard the system say that it had an impression of the place he was born in. Where is it? I only remember that when I first became conscious, it was a beautiful woman in ancient clothes who came to take me away. Then, before leaving that place, I saw the plaque on the door. The name was Space Administration. As for the rest, I can't remember it for the time being. Chapter 353. The name, Time and Space Administration, took root in Tanguy's heart. But the system didn't know anything else, but it was certain that the reason why she traveled through so many worlds was inseparable from the woman who took the system away. As for the truth, she thought that she could find out the truth by upgrading the system. The way the system upgraded was that if she had fun and was in a good mood, she would have more energy. She was a little conflicted. So, was the person who made her travel good to her, or was she messing with her? At least for now, no one in the various worlds had interfered with her actions. It was also possible that the other party had forgotten about this. Bai Wenwen lost the system. How is she doing now? Not very good. After losing the 875, she no longer acted or recorded talent videos. Dear host, that Bai Wenwen doesn't know how to do that at all. Her talents are all skill cards exchanged from the system store, and they can only be used in one world. After the 875 disappeared, the skill cards were useless. Oh, that's good. I'm very happy that she's not doing well. She didn't care about Bai Wenwen and Su He and began to read the script. Xiao Nia was going to release a new film, and it was a story that she was interested in. This time, she had her eyes on a third female lead. Logically speaking, with Tanguy's current status, no matter whose film it was a given that she would be the female lead. But she didn't pursue fame or fortune in acting. She looked at her interests and was very relaxed. In the film Who is the Murderer?, Tanguy won the Best Supporting Female Lead with her superb acting skills, and Chu Nuo won the Best Supporting Male Lead. In fact, the male and female leads, Liang Chao and Nia Lingling, were equally outstanding in this film. Both of them won the Best Supporting Male and Female Lead awards. For such a film to win the Best Supporting Male and Female Lead awards, it was simply unheard of. But they were really too outstanding and couldn't be picky. In the next few years, Tanguy acted in Xiao Nie's films one after another. Everyone thought that Xiao Nie's only female lead would be her. Unexpectedly, she played a supporting role for several years and won the Best Supporting Female Lead award every year. The people who paid attention to Tanguy all felt like they had been cursed. If Tang Tang was the female lead, she would have been a movie queen long ago. Sigh, Tang Tang is really capricious. She used to like the prettiest, but now she only likes me. That's right. In the eyes of the entire country, Tang Guo's actions were just like, I'm the most supporting character. However, her acting was so good that Xiao Nia didn't hesitate to give her the camera. It made people not know whether to cry or laugh. The anti-fan group was still struggling, but they were no longer picking on Tang Guo. Instead, the content of their daily check-in was, brothers, hold on. Don't fall. Sisters, isn't that woman just a little pretty, has good acting skills, and looks good when she smiles? Don't like her, don't like her. Everyone, I'm still alive. I controlled my fingers and didn't join Tang Guo's fan club. When the group leader saw that there were only 20 members left, he felt helpless. Why don't we change the name? The group leader asked. Change what? Group host, Tang Tang's fan club, what do you think? Let's vote. The group leader created a voting system, and in less than a minute, everyone, including himself, passed. He moved his fingers and the last anti-fan group disappeared from the internet, becoming a member of Tang Tang's fan club. Many years passed in the blink of an eye. This year, Tang Guo turned 30. She announced on Weibo, this time, I'm playing the female lead. Do you think I'll be a movie queen? Chapter 354. Yes. Yes. Definitely. Definitely. Tang Tang is the best. Ah, my baby is already in primary school. Tang Tang, you're finally willing to play the female lead. I'm looking forward to it. At 30 years old, Tang Guo was still as beautiful as a young girl. She always had a faint smile on her face. Wherever she was, Xiao Nia would always appear. In the summer, he would come over with a box of ice cream. After feeding her, when she said she wanted another box, he would very seriously refuse. No. No matter how much she fussed, he would say no. In the end, he couldn't help but hug her in his arms and carefully kiss her forehead. He whispered in her ear that it wasn't good for girls to eat too much cold drinks. It would cause stomach pain. Such a meticulous and gentle man was simply a role model. Those who knew Xiao Nia said that if it weren't for Tang Guo, they wouldn't have known that the genius director who scolded people at the drop of a hat had such a patient, meticulous, and gentle side. When the actors who had been scolded by Xiao Nia acted in his films again, they finally understood that there were times when director Xiao didn't scold people. Although they would still be scolded like dogs, it was much better than before. Sometimes, when the scolding was too serious, as long as Tang Guo said something, they were not allowed to scold and just smiled. Director Xiao, who originally had a straight face and a serious expression, would reveal a flattering smile like a pug. Director Xiao, who could collapse at any time in front of people, didn't hide his different attitude towards Tang Guo. There was another popular saying on the internet, if you want to live a good life, you can't lack Director Xiao's dog food. One meal every day can fill your stomach. Before he met Tang Guo, Director Xiao filmed one film every 2 years. After he met Tang Guo, Director Xiao filmed 2 films a year, and both of them were excellent. Director Xiao said, "She is my goddess of inspiration, my muse." Actually, they could all see that although Xiao Nia had carefully analyzed and conceived every role, he had heavily modified Tang Guo's role. Every role had reached the most perfect state, even if sometimes there weren't that many scenes. The whole country was looking forward to the female lead of Tang Guo's film this time. Tang Guo didn't want to be famous all over the world, but the movie, Who's the Murderer, would let the whole world know about her. Later on, all the films she acted in would be imported by other countries, and she even became an internationally famous actress. Over the years, she had almost only acted in Xiao Nia's films. Occasionally, she would act in some unimportant roles out of friendship with someone she knew. As long as she participated in it, the degree of popularity would be unimaginable. The people in the circle were also very friendly to her. They couldn't wait for her to direct their dramas. Unfortunately, there were very few directors who could make Tang Guo agree. Even if she agreed, there was still Xiao Nia. As for variety shows, she never participated in them. She had only been a mystery guest on Chang Yuan's reality show, Into the Forest. She had taught the actors how to survive in the forest. The video of her escaping back then had already been treated as a textbook escape video. The name of the new movie was very cliché. It was called You and Me. Just from the name alone, one could tell that it was a romance movie. Xiao Nia rarely filmed romantic scenes. This did not mean that everyone was not looking forward to it. On the contrary, they were looking forward to it. When the film was released, they finally understood why the film was called You and Me. This film was filmed in a closed environment. No one dared to reveal anything to the outside world. There were no announcements. On the day of the film's release, they did not see the film's poster. They walked in excitedly. When they saw the people on the screen, they finally understood. Chapter 355. Title: You and Me. Female lead, Tang Guo. Male lead, Xiao Nia. Director, Xiao Nia. Producer, Xiao Nia. Screenwriter, Xiao Nia. Tang Guo. The opening credits made people want to cry. This film was filmed very carefully and the audience watched it very carefully. It was quiet throughout. There was no abuse in the film. It was different from Xiao Nia's previous strict style. Every film would inspire people. This was a dog food film. After watching it, the fans expressed their feelings. I think the name of this film should be Let You See How I Dote on My Wife. It can also be called The Daily Love Between My Wife and Me. Or Tang Qiao and Mr. and Mrs. Show Their Love Every Day. I think if Director Qiao's dog food drowns me. Sigh, my heart is tired. This diary of Director Qiao's pet, Tang Tang, really makes my teeth ache. Although they felt sour, they really felt all kinds of love bubbles in their hearts. Those who had boyfriends all hoped that their boyfriends could learn from Director Qiao. Those who didn't have boyfriends hoped that their boyfriends would be like Director Qiao. The ending of the film was that Xiao Nia successfully gained Tang Guo's love. The two of them got married and lived happily ever after. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they really wouldn't have believed that this was filmed by Xiao Nia. They didn't expect that Xiao Nia would film a romance film and that it would be so touching. Later on, a poster was posted. It was a wedding photo of Xiao Nia and Tang Guo. If they hadn't known that they weren't married, they would have thought that it was a wedding photo. The truth was that this was really just a photo taken in a wedding dress on the set. It wasn't a wedding photo. There was a mystery buried in this film. Every day when Xiao Nia woke up, he would go to Tang Guo's room and ask, "Do you like me a little more today?" "No, you have to work hard, Xiao Nia." This was Tang Guo's answer more than 10 times in the film. Xiao Nia would always smile and pull her into his arms. He hugged her and said, "Okay, I'll ask again tomorrow." That persistent and focused gaze was clearly simple, but it couldn't help but make people cry. At the end of the film, on a beautiful morning, Xiao Nia knocked on the door. "Guo Guo, do you like me a little more today?" After waiting for a long time, the door opened. The person inside was wearing a wedding dress. She smiled and gave him a hug. Yes. The eyes of the man on the camera were red. He hugged her tightly and whispered, "That's great." The entire movie seemed to be filled with sugar. The audience was still a little confused. Why did Xiao Nia ask this every day? It was as if he had made a mistake. Everyone on the internet was discussing this issue. Whether it was Xiao Nia or Tanghua, no one answered. This made them very anxious. They felt that this drama was not simple. They carefully looked through it frame by frame, trying to find clues. After watching it a few times, they realized the hidden meaning behind the plain and warm love story. The tolerance between the two and the sacrifice. But in the end, they still didn't know what the puzzle was. Fortunately, Tanghua finally won the Best Actress award, so they were still a little satisfied. That year, Tanghua was 32 years old. She moved her fingers and posted on Weibo, "From today onwards, I won't act anymore." This post caused a huge uproar on Weibo. Faced with the fans' questions, she posted on Weibo again, "I don't want to act anymore. It's quite tiring." The fans were speechless. The entire country's audience was speechless. Suhee had just finished filming a scene and habitually took out his phone to check Weibo. Suddenly, he saw the trending topics. Tanghua announces her retirement. She won't act anymore. She won't act anymore. It's quite tiring. Chapter 356. Was she not acting anymore? Suhee stared at his phone in a daze. For a moment, he had an indescribable feeling. Best Actor Sue, what's wrong? Suhee quickly put down his phone and said, "Nothing, let's continue." All these years, they didn't seem to have any communication. She seemed to have forgotten the past and removed him from her life. From the beginning, he had the idea of revenge, but after marrying Bai Wenwen, some of his beautiful love was shattered. Today's Bai Wenwen was no longer the person he used to like. He was actually very conflicted. Who did he like between Bai Wenwen and Tanghua? He didn't know. He could only put everything into his acting career. He couldn't even bring himself to take revenge on Xiao Nia. 9 years had passed since that glance at the wedding, but he still couldn't forget it. He never got the answer from her. Why did she betray him and go to Xiao Nia? Perhaps it was because he was middle-aged and had more to worry about. There were many things he didn't have the courage to do. After Suhee finished his day's work, he picked up his phone and was about to look at it again when he was attracted by a few hot searches. Not acting anymore. I don't want to act anymore. I'm a little busy. He had a premonition in his heart, as if he understood who these hot searches belonged to. He clicked on them and saw Xiao Nia's Weibo. Xiao Nia's Weibo post was, "From today onwards, I won't act anymore." In the face of the fans' questions, he sent another post like Tanghua. "I don't want to act anymore. I'm a little busy." Suhee smiled bitterly. These two people were really the same. If they didn't want to act, they wouldn't act. If they didn't want to act, they wouldn't act. One reason was that they were very tired, and the other reason was that they were very busy. Perhaps, they were a real couple. He turned off his phone with a complicated mood and returned to the cold villa. His gentle wife didn't come up and ask with concern, "Are you tired today? Are you hungry? Do you want to eat something?" He went upstairs tiredly and pushed open the door. Sure enough, he saw the figure curled up on the bed. As if hearing his movements, the other party propped herself up and glanced at him indifferently. Then, she wrapped the quilt around her deformed body. It had been more than 9 years. Since the day they got married, Bai Wenwen had been decadent. She ate and drank in the villa and didn't go out. If she was hungry, she would order takeout and leave the takeout box at the door. If she ran out of money, she would ask him for it. From the beginning, he felt guilty, but now, he didn't know what he was doing. Fortunately, this woman would only ask for money to eat takeout and occasionally buy some clothes online. She didn't go out, didn't socialize, didn't speak, and her beautiful eyes became gray. He tried to let Bai Wenwen go out, but she was very scared and didn't want to go out. No matter how many doctors he invited, it was useless. The psychiatrist said that in this situation, she was afraid of socializing and did not want to expose herself to the crowd. If he wanted to treat it, he had to find the cause. He couldn't understand why Bai Wenwen, who was so confident, would end up like this. He had asked Bai Wenwen. Perhaps the other party was a little impatient, so she said that she would not go out. She also said that if he was lonely and wanted to find a woman, she had no opinion. He would just leave her to fend for herself in the room and give her some money for takeout every month. He didn't understand Bai Wenwen. From the beginning, he had hope, but now he just let it be. Every day, he would come up to take a look. He was afraid that one day, she would die and stink, and he wouldn't even know. Thinking about this reason, it was really laughable. Bai Wenwen closed her eyes, only hoping that this life would pass as soon as possible. She used to be a high school student who didn't know anything. Once she was hit by a car, she got a system called 875. Chapter 357. Bai Wenwen thought that she would reach the peak of her life, flirt with beautiful men in every world and gain the love of countless people. Anyway, she had the system, so she was not afraid of anything. As long as she completed the task, she could get all kinds of skill cards. No one could compare to her when she used the skill cards. She never thought that 875 would disappear. Looking back, she found that she had crossed so many worlds. In each world, she was flirting with beautiful men and capturing all kinds of men. She didn't master any skills to survive in this world. Those used skill cards were also gone after the 875 disappeared. Her dream was shattered. She, who had always been high and mighty, couldn't accept such a big difference. She had no strength now. After she went out, what if her fans asked her to play the piano? She didn't know. What if her fans asked her to paint? She didn't know. The owner of this body had studied abroad. What if her friends communicated with her in English? She didn't know. She didn't know anything. So she was waiting for death. Maybe when she died, another system would appear. The system appeared once, so it was not impossible for it to appear again. She thought about suicide, but she was afraid of suicide. The pain of being hit by a car and the pain of being crushed at the end of her death, she didn't want to experience it again. In those worlds, every time she left, it was the system that took her away. It could be said that she left painlessly. She didn't want to do anything now. Anyway, Suhi was here. She didn't need to spend much. She could order takeout for her and buy some clothes to wear. She didn't care what Suhi wanted to do. What she mainly wanted to do was to eat and wait for death. Hearing Suhi's footsteps, Bai Wenwen fell asleep. In her dream, she died and got a system. She shuttled through various small worlds, capturing different men and enjoying their admiring eyes. Anya, why don't you film? Tang Guo was half lying on the sofa, her white feet swaying. Xiao Nya walked over and held her feet. He took a blanket and wrapped her feet in it and put them on his lap. It's autumn. Why do you always expose your feet? Aren't you afraid of getting sick? Tang Guo smiled, I'm in good health. Did Guoguo like me a little today? Faced with this man's sincere and serious gaze, Tang Guo burst into laughter. Anya, you're so persistent. Is there? Tang Guo stopped smiling and waved at him. Come here and I'll tell you. Xiao Nya sat beside her and hugged her in his arms. Her soft and warm body made him feel strangely satisfied. It was as if he didn't have to ask that question. She was in his arms, and these questions were no longer important. Anya, you're such a cute person. Although he made a mistake, it's great that he can correct his mistakes. He's indeed very likable. Xiao Nie's eyes lit up. Tang Guo raised her hand and pinched his cheek. She said softly, "Nie, you have successfully attracted my attention. Because of your good performance, I kind of like you." The corners of Xiao Nie's mouth curled up. Actually, he didn't care about this for a long time. He could hug her every day, so what was the point of saying all this? She had been living in his villa and doing everything for him. She was almost useless because of him. If she really didn't want him, she probably wouldn't be used to it. Xiao Nie didn't intend to express these thoughts. Chapter 358. Host, you still have half a year. Tang Guo was scrolling through Weibo. Although she wasn't acting anymore, she still scrolled through Weibo every day. Her fans realized that Tang Guo was more fun when she wasn't acting, so they didn't feel conflicted and started to joke about her on Weibo all day. So fast. Tang Guo paused, put down her phone and stood up. She drew the curtains and looked at the world outside. She was going to leave this place soon. She picked up her phone again and called Xiao Nie. "Guo, do you have anything you want today?" Tang Guo smiled. "Yeah, I suddenly want to go out for a walk. Do you want to come? You deserve a sweet trip." "Yes." After hanging up the phone, Tang Guo made a trip plan and found a crew to accompany her. Xiao Nie hurried back. He didn't see the woman playing with her phone on the sofa as usual. Instead, he smelled the aroma of food from the kitchen. He hurried into the kitchen and was surprised to see Tang Guo cooking. Plates of exquisite delicacies were placed next to him, which really surprised him. He thought that he had spoiled her, but he didn't expect her to be even better than he had imagined. "I'm used to being served by you. I'm a little rusty." Xiao Nie hurried over and wanted to take the spatula. "Let me do it. Be careful not to spill the oil and burn you." "No, I'll do it. It's almost finished." Tang Guo smiled. "I said I would treat you better." Xiao Nie was stunned. He didn't expect her to be so serious. He did feel that Tang Guo's attitude towards him was getting better and better. At first, she didn't care much about him, but later on, she made all his clothes custom-made for him. Every little accessory was carefully chosen by her. Many people thought that he spoiled her, but in fact, she was spoiling him too. When she said she was good to someone, she really meant it. When she said she liked him a little, he saw that in her eyes. When she said she would abandon her feelings for Su-hee, she really did forget about him without hesitation. She was ruthless and passionate. She was really fascinating and he couldn't help but fall for her. "Yeah, are you happy with me?" "Of course." Tang Guo narrowed her eyes. "Oh, if I'm gone, will you be sad?" "Yes." Xiao Nie was a little nervous. He wrapped his arms around her waist and whispered, "You're leaving me. Have you taken a fancy to someone else?" He looked like an abandoned puppy. "No." Tang Guo said, "I don't like anyone else, and I can't find anyone in this world who is better than you and can move me more." Xiao Nie heaved a sigh of relief. "That's good. But the world has birth, aging, sickness, and death. This is something that no one can stop. You and I, one of us will die first." Xiao Nie was stunned for a moment before he smiled and said, "It's okay." Speaking of this, Tang Guo forgot to ask the system about Xiao Nie's lifespan. "Tongzi, what's the longest lifespan of Xiao Nie?" 80 years old. Tang Guo smiled. "Then he's really unlucky. Who didn't like him? Why did he have to like her?" Tang Guo's cooking was better than he had imagined, but Xiao Nie still said, "Don't cook in the future. It'll hurt your hands." He carefully helped her apply the hand cream. There was a faint smile on his face and his eyes were filled with tenderness. Looking at how serious and sincere she was, he only saw her as a rare treasure. Tangua habitually messed up his hair. Xiao Nia held her messy hand and said calmly, "Before we go on the trip, let's go to the hospital for a checkup. He might suspect that I have a terminal illness." Tangua smiled and discussed with the system. As expected of a director, he's really good at imagining things. Chapter 359. After receiving the health report, Xiao Nia heaved a sigh of relief. He pretended to be calm as he held Tangua's hand. Following that, the entire nation witnessed a torturous trip. Every day, Tangua would update her Weibo with photos of her and Xiao Nia's trip. In the photos, the two of them were smiling sweetly. Especially in some of the videos, one could see how much chemistry they had. When Suhi was free, he would sit in the villa and read Tangua's Weibo. He read one post after another. As he scrolled down, he was surprised to find that the person mentioned on Weibo a long time ago was not Xiao Nia, but him. Every post was filled with love. This discovery made his heart burn with passion. Thinking about the current situation, he felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured over him. One morning half a year later, Tangua leaned against Xiao Nia. The two of them sat on a rock and waited for the sun to rise. Xiao Nia hugged the person beside him tightly. His body was trembling and his voice was trembling. He forced a smile and said something strange. "Medical science is not advanced at all now. You checked it so carefully." Tangua listened to his complaints in amusement. She hugged his waist. "You're too noisy. Then I won't talk." "Forget it. You can talk. I'll listen." Xiao Nia hugged her and kissed her forehead, then her cheeks. Finally, he kissed her lips. He touched them gently and then left. "I feel like my heart is missing a corner. It seems like it can't be repaired." "Aw Nia, don't be so greedy. In these 10 years, I've only been good to you. I haven't even looked at anyone else." Xiao Nia didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I can't help it." He couldn't help it. He wanted to spend more time with her. "Aw Nia, just take it that you're leaving the rest of your time for your next life." "Guogua, you really don't know how to comfort people. Every word you say breaks my heart." But he couldn't help it. He just liked her. Without her, his entire life had lost its color. He pressed his chin against her forehead and whispered, "In my next life, will I still be able to find you? If you're sincere, it'll happen. Then I'll work hard." Tangua smiled. "You, who won't have any memories in your next life, will start another life." As for her, she would continue to reincarnate endlessly. She did not know when the end would come. She buried herself in his arms, a little greedy for the taste of this kind of love. Only an unforgettable feeling would allow her to continue on this lonely journey and not lose herself midway. In return, she would give him the purest feelings and leave him with the most beautiful love. Just like now, knowing that she was about to leave this place, she was not at all afraid of what the next world would be, nor did she have any feeling of weariness. She narrowed her eyes and suddenly thought of something. She raised her head and kissed him. Their eyes met, and this time, Xiao Nia could clearly see the love in her eyes. "Ah, and I'm leaving." The woman's voice rang softly in his ear. Xiao Nia was so shocked that he hurriedly hugged her and said painfully, "Guogua, can I say no? Can I not listen to you this time?" Looking at the woman's tightly shut eyes, he cried softly and gently caressed her cheek. "Why are you leaving so easily? I've really spoiled you." His eyes were red, and he looked doting and helpless. He patted her shoulder gently. Okay, I'll listen to you, okay? The filming crew behind couldn't help but cover their mouths and quickly take out tissues to wipe their tears. If this wasn't their job, they would definitely turn around and leave. Chapter 360. Xiao Nia didn't post anything on Weibo. He didn't want those people to disturb her. In the end, Zhu Yi posted something on Weibo, saying that Tang Guo had passed away. No matter what, as Tang Guo's manager, she had to inform the public. Su He habitually checked his microblog when he was taking a break from work. When he saw the words, Tang Guo passed away due to illness, all the blood in his body flowed backwards. His face instantly turned pale, and he almost fell down. Best actor Su, are you okay? Su He held his phone with trembling hands. He grabbed the person beside him and asked, she's gone. This is fake, right? The others also just found out that the best actress of the generation, Tang Guo, had passed away. They were silent in response to Su He's question. Su He found the director and said, I'm sorry, I need to take a day off. They all knew that Su He checked Weibo every day to see Tang Guo. The director had allowed it. Su He didn't change his clothes or remove his makeup. He just drove to Xiao Nie's villa. When he arrived, there were already many people there. Xiao Nie stood at the door, looking very gloomy. He was even gloomier than before he met Tang Guo. Liang Chao and his wife stood at the side, looking sad too. Zhu Yi's eyes were red and she couldn't help but cry. Can I see her? Su He made this request and successfully attracted Xiao Nie's attention. Xiao Nie glanced at him. No. Su He smiled bitterly. I'm asking for too much. He didn't know why he was there. Just as he was about to ask something, a group of reporters came. He frowned and quickly realized that these reporters were invited by Xiao Nie. Director Xiao, what are you going to announce? Xiao Nie walked to the front expressionlessly. I'm going to announce the truth. Su He vaguely felt that something wasn't right. He stood silently at the side. Xiao Nie glanced at him and continued to speak to the reporters. Back then, you were all over the place reporting that Guo Guo betrayed Su He and all kinds of negative things. Well, Director Xiao, we all retracted the reports. The truth proved that Tang Tang was innocent, the reporter said quickly. They couldn't afford to offend her. She was the daughter of the family. They wanted to report more, but they were afraid that they wouldn't be able to keep their jobs. Xiao Nie sneered, you also think that Guo Guo betrayed Su He, right? Even if you know that she's the eldest daughter of the Tang family, you'll still think that she chose me because she looked down on Su He, right? Was that not the case? Su He suddenly raised his head and looked at Xiao Nie. He pursed his lips tightly. Was this not the truth? Xiao Nie took out his phone and played a recording. It was copied from the surveillance camera in his office. He didn't expect to use it here. He knew that this was what she wanted to do. Even if she didn't order it, with her vengeful personality, she definitely didn't want Su to reconcile. Su He and Bai Wenwen ruined her reputation. If it weren't for the reality show and the exposure of her background, she wouldn't have been able to survive in this circle as an ordinary actress. After listening to the recording, everyone fell silent. It turned out that the truth between you and me was Xiao Nie's apology to Tang Guo. You can leave now. Su He crazily shouted that he wanted to see Tang Guo. How could Xiao Nie satisfy him? He called the security guards to drive him out. She was his, and no one was allowed to see her. Su He sat outside the villa and cried for a long time. He was in a sorry state. He thought of many reasons, but he never thought that this would be the reason. She actually agreed to Xiao Nie's request because of him. He even found people to slander her, trying to make her unable to make a comeback. He even thought of really destroying her. Thinking of the things hidden in the villa, he started to cry. At that time, he really wanted to destroy her. How could he think of injecting her with that thing? He even thought of giving her to those fat old men. He was really disgusting. He was really evil. He let her down. No wonder she completely forgot about him. He didn't deserve it. Chapter 361. He wanted to see her fall and watch her regret from above. He completely ignored the way she came back to him and tried to explain herself. He called her disgusting and cheap. Now, he regretted it as much as he scolded her back then. His heart was dirty, and his soul was dirty. He thought that he had climbed to where he was today with his own efforts. So what if she betrayed him? He succeeded, but reality slapped him hard in the face. If it weren't for her, Xiao Nia would never have let him go. He stayed outside the villa for several days. In the end, he was taken away when he fainted. A few days after he was taken away, someone reported that he was hiding something in the villa and he was arrested. Bai Wenwen, who had not appeared in public for 10 years and was obese and pale, was also photographed. Bai Wenwen's dodging appearance was captured by someone. After the public saw it, they only felt weak. Xiao Nia looked at the serene Tanghua. The corners of his mouth were slightly curled up, and there was some warmth in his eyes. Are you satisfied? He really didn't expect Suhi to have such thoughts in the beginning. Did you know about it from the beginning? That's why you completely forgot about Suhi and were so decisive. Guogua, you're really a bad woman. You left so decisively and left me with such a person who needs to be taught a lesson. You knew that I wouldn't be soft-hearted, so you left those clues, right? You didn't want to see Suhi again and make him restless for the rest of his life, right? If I didn't wake up in time, I'm afraid you wouldn't have given me those 10 years of beautiful days. Xiao Nia bent down and looked at her seriously and sincerely. But I like women like you. In a world without you, the blood stops flowing, and the withered grass will never be reborn. Staring at the woman's face, Xiao Nia felt a pain in his brain. Countless memories flooded into his mind. When he opened his eyes again, the sorrow in his eyes was much less, leaving more helplessness. He touched the woman's cheek and kissed her forehead out of habit. It's really torturous. I owe you. He stood up with a different smile on his face. After arranging everything, he sat beside Tanghua. He took one last look at her and closed his eyes with a faint smile. A few days later, Xiao Ye's assistant announced that Xiao Ye had passed away. He saw the news in the detention center and was stunned for a long time. Host, Xiao Nia committed suicide by taking medicine. Why bother? Nia is still so cute. He's so cute that I can't bear to part with him. What a pitiful puppy. Tanguo lay in the heavenly spring and looked at the silver light around her that was getting brighter and brighter. She slowly closed her eyes. Wake me up in 3 days. I'm a little tired. I'm going to sleep. Okay. The system secretly wiped its cold sweat. There was something wrong with Xiao Nia, but since he was already dead, there was no need for the host to worry about it. When Tanguo woke up, she felt sticky all over, and the air was filled with the smell of blood and all kinds of rotten things. Without opening her eyes, she knew that this was not a good place. Sure enough, when he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw were a few ugly zombies that were crookedly looking for food around him. She, who hadn't received her memories, found that the zombie didn't attack her. She looked at her body again and found that it was intact. Fortunately, it wasn't an ugly zombie. Tongzi, did this body awaken the ability to be compatible with zombies? The system was silent for a while and told the truth. Host, let me tell you some unfortunate news. You are now a zombie. Chapter 362. Tanguo frowned and took out a mirror to look at herself. She had arched eyebrows, almond eyes, a straight nose, cherry lips, and rosy skin. She didn't look like a zombie at all. That's also the best-looking zombie. Yes, the most beautiful one. Host, do you want to look at the memories? Since she was a zombie, Tanguo found a clean stool to sit on and started to look at the memories. This world was an apocalyptic world. The original name of this book was Tang Tang's Survival in the Apocalypse. It sounded like a Mary Sue book. The owner of this body was the protagonist of this apocalypse. But after a reader of this book transmigrated to this world, she became the evil female supporting lead here. Yen Yen was the female lead of this world. She had read Tang Tang's Survival in the Apocalypse and complained that the female lead had too much halo. She also thought that the female lead was too cold to survive in the apocalypse. Since she had obtained the jade pendant and cultivation techniques, why didn't she take them out to save the world? When she woke up the next day, Yen Yen transmigrated to a female supporting lead who was also called Yen Yen but ended up in a very miserable state. Because she failed to seduce Yen Yi, she was thrown out of the base and raped to death. In order to change her fate, Yen Yen planned to get the jade pendant before the original owner discovered its use. She knew what had happened in the book. She got a lot of supplies and drove to the original owner and her fiancé Yen Yi's villa. Yen Yi had a high fever and the original owner was anxious. Yen Yen's arrival made her see the light. Yen Yen promised to give the original owner supplies and medicine in exchange for the jade pendant around the original owner's neck. In order to save her fiancé's life, the original owner agreed and gave the family jade pendant to Yen Yen. Yen Yen was still worried after getting the jade pendant. Yen Yi was actually awakening his abilities. In order to avoid being killed by Yen Yi and the original owner in the future, she decided to separate them. She told the original owner that there was a pharmacy not far from here. There were many medicines inside that might be helpful to Yen Yi. If she wanted to get them, she could help watch Yen Yi here. The original owner didn't think too much. Saving people was more important. She hurriedly left the villa to get the medicine. After she left, Yen Yen took Yen Yi away. When Yen Yi woke up, he asked her where she had gone. Yen Yen said that she had only seen him unconscious in the villa, so she had brought him along. Yen Yi thought that he was abandoned by his beloved fiancé, and since then he hated the original owner. After working with Yen Yen countless times, the two of them gradually developed feelings for each other. Yen Yi doted on Yen Yen to the heavens, but at the same time, he didn't forget that he once had a fiancé who abandoned him. The original owner went to the pharmacy and was bitten by a zombie. She didn't know why she didn't turn into a disgusting zombie, but she did turn into a zombie. Later, when he returned, he found that Yen Yi was not there. He thought that zombies had taken over this place and Yen Yi had been taken away. Later, she found Yen Yi after thousands of miles, but when she saw him and Yen Yen being lovey-dovey, she collapsed. No matter how she explained that she was going to get the medicine, Yen Yi did not believe her. Her fiancé, who was once gentle to her, was only good to another woman. He was cold to her, and his eyes were about to kill her. After countless explanations, countless misunderstandings, and countless cold treatment, the original owner finally gave up. When she gave up, Yen Yi didn't let her go. The other base found out that Yen Yen had a secret and attacked the Sunshine base built by Yen Yi. They also had very advanced firearms. If he didn't hand Yen Yen over, they would blow up the Sunshine base. Chapter 363. In order to protect the base, Yen Yi handed the original owner over to the Sunset base and pointed out that she was Yen Yen. Yen Yen was taken away in despair and faced with cold cuts. Her body was very special. After being cut countless times, she would always regenerate, so no one suspected that she wasn't Yen Yen. After more than a year of research, there was no problem. The person in charge of the Sunset Base, Shi Cheng, appeared and asked her what her secret was. The original owner only said, "My name is Tanghua, not Yen Yen. I was Yen Yi's fiancé." Shi Cheng was silent for a long time and finally asked, "Then why can you regenerate?" "I'm a zombie." Her eyes were dim as if she had lost hope. "I don't know either." "Go." Shi Cheng let her go. She didn't return to the Sunshine Base but hid among the zombies. Once, Yen Yi was surrounded by zombies and was about to be eaten by mutated zombies, but she still couldn't bear to save him. Putting him in a safe place, she returned to the zombies and stayed with them all day. Many years later, Yen Yi brought an integrated team and weapons to kill zombies to the last zombie hill. He aimed the gun at her head and wanted to kill her with one shot. Shi Cheng persuaded at this time, "She's not bad. She saved you and was your fiancé." "She's just a traitor," Yen Yi said. Before Shi Cheng could stop him, she was shot in the head. Actually, she had a chance to escape, but she didn't want to. She didn't know the length of her life. She, who had lost hope, didn't know why she wanted to live. Since she didn't have a goal to live, why not destroy herself? As for Yen Yen and Yen Yi, they welcomed the new light and lived happily together. Yen Yi and Shi Cheng divided the world into two, each taking charge of one side. Tanghua didn't feel good after reading the memory. She rubbed her temples. It's another troublesome world. Now, she turned into a zombie in the pharmacy and was about to take the medicine back to Yen Yi. She glanced at a pocket in the corner. It was full of medicine. The original owner is so stupid. She sneered. This kind of disobedient bitch, just torture her. If you're dead, you'll have nothing. Those who are alive will still live in glory. Stupid. Since I've been regarded as a bad person, why not be a bad person to the end? Tanghua narrowed her eyes. With the current strength of this body, it's really too easy to crush Yen Yi. The system hurriedly reminded her, "Dear host, if you crush Yen Yi, there will be no more fun. We will go directly to the next world." The male and female leads couldn't die in the plot unless the plot about them ended. "I didn't want to directly crush Yen Yi." Tanghua took out a tissue and wiped off the dirt on her body. Her voice was faint, "It's just a sigh. You obviously have such a powerful strength. What can't you change? You just have to give up on yourself." I don't know what kind of education the original owner received to have such a masochistic personality. The system heaved a sigh of relief. The host must be complaining. "Right, host, what should we do now?" "I want to take a hot bath first." Tanghua frowned in disdain. Although her face was considered clean, her body was dirty all over. In addition to blood, there was also zombie body fluid. The smell was disgusting. "Then I'll go easy on you." The system hurriedly said, "The host's happiness is the most important." Chapter 364. Bang! Tanghua punched the thick iron door. The iron door, which could not be broken even with tools, was suddenly punched through. Seeing the dark hole, she laughed out loud, "It's a little strong." The system swallowed its saliva. It was a little strong, but it had never heard of a zombie who could punch a hole in an iron door. Tanghua carefully checked her body. In addition to her appearance, her body functions were different from ordinary people. There was also something like a crystal nucleus in her brain. She could mobilize the energy in the crystal nucleus. She could also use her own method to absorb energy from the outside world to increase her strength. In other words, as long as she continued to improve, no one would be her opponent. Not to mention Yan-E, it was not impossible to beat everyone. This body was a reborn body. As long as she did not seek death, she was completely invincible. Tangua pushed the door open and walked out with satisfaction. Those swaying zombies saw her and quickly hid behind. They obviously did not have any consciousness, as if they were very afraid. Her heart moved and she tried to communicate with these zombies. As soon as she sent out her thoughts, the zombies around her quickly rushed to her. They had the appearance of a pug, and their tattered faces even had a flattering expression. There were even a few zombies, who handed the food they found to her, as if they were filial to her. Tangua glanced at their dirty hands, holding all kinds of internal organs. She was very disgusted. You guys eat it. Faced with Tangua's rejection, they looked disappointed and left dejectedly. After a while, they came in front of Tangua again. This time, what was handed to Tangua was not food, but all kinds of golden necklaces and bracelets. They also stared straight at the bracelets on Tangua's wrist, as if to say, "Do you like these?" Tangua was speechless for a moment. Were zombies all so flattering these days? Host, you used your thoughts to communicate with them. They should be influenced by you and have more consciousness. In their eyes, you are their everything. Of course, they want you to be happy. Sob, 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 he seemed to have found a like-minded partner. Tangua accepted all kinds of jewelry they had collected. The zombies were so happy that they shook even harder. If it was only one zombie, it would be fine, but more than 20 zombies shook together. It was as if all of them were convulsing. Tangua looked at them and had a bold idea in her heart. Why did you kill all the zombies? If you kill all the zombies, won't you kill me as well? According to the original lifespan of the original owner of this book, it should be relatively long, right? Yes, according to the original timeline, the original owner of the body could live for more than 300 years as a psychic. Tangua narrowed her eyes. But now, the entire human race wants to kill me. Why don't I establish a zombie empire and occupy one side of Earth? Humans can also live in my zombie empire. Zombies were originally transformed from humans. It wasn't their intention to become like this. This is just a natural disaster. Why can't we zombies survive in this world? Why can't we rule a piece of land? This place belongs to us in the first place. System, the host's thinking is very fast. She is thinking for the zombie race. However, a zombie empire, it still sounds interesting. Tong, what do you think? He raised his hands in support. He didn't seem to have hands. Chapter 365. In the following time, Tangua didn't leave the pharmacy. Instead, she studied the zombies in front of her. Other than being different from humans, they were very obedient and seemed to be a few years old. Tangua told them not to eat raw meat, human flesh, or bite people casually, but they really didn't go. She believed that the 20 or so zombies in front of her could be her senior subordinates. She couldn't hide and develop a zombie group. She still had to go to Yan-E. How could she provoke conflict if she didn't go? She wanted to see if Yan-E would believe Yan or her this time. This could also be considered a chance to start over. Regarding starting over, she liked to give people a chance. If the other party didn't cherish it, she could be merciless. Is the group still there? Tangua suddenly asked. She didn't enter the group in the previous world, but she knew that the group hadn't disappeared. System, it's still there. Other than Ji Xiaoxi who disappeared, everyone else is still there. They aren't ordinary people and have lived for a long time. Even those in the star plane can live for thousands of years. When the host wasn't around, I took over your account. They all know that you're very busy. Tangguo glanced at the group. The people inside seemed to be discussing something. She sent a message. How have you guys been? Perfected Ziyun, school bell. You're here. Perfected Monarch Qi Shao, wow, school bell, you haven't appeared in so many years. You're finally here. I miss you so much. Everyone in the group said that they hadn't seen her for many years and missed her. After Tangguo sent them food red packets, she said, I went to another plane. I stayed in the previous plane for a short time. I just changed planes and ran into some trouble. I want to ask you for help. Wanderer Silver Ring went to another plane. School bell, so you can really travel between planes. Everyone in the group was stunned. They thought that the school bell was bragging. They didn't expect it to be true. As for why, they didn't ask. Who didn't have a little secret? Margaret was very enthusiastic. I wonder where the school bell is. What can we help you with? They felt very bad about eating so much food for free. The school bell rarely asked them for help. She hadn't appeared for more than 10 years, so they thought that the school bell was in danger. Tangguo said, regarding this question, I guess we'll have to ask General Emmanuel and General Billy from the interstellar plane. The place I went to was a post-apocalyptic world where zombies had just broken out. If my guess is correct, Interstellar should have experienced the apocalypse and is no stranger to the zombie virus. Emmanuel, wow, is this the apocalyptic zombie outbreak world that has existed for a long time? School Beauty, what kind of help do you need now? Do you need a drug to kill zombies? I can ask someone to help develop it. Campus Belle, what effect does this drug have on zombies? Emmanuel felt that this was quite strange, but he still said, this is a medicine that can kill zombies. If used on zombies, the virus will be cleared, and all zombies will die. No, I don't need this kind of thing. Tangguo didn't even want to think about it and added, my body is now a zombie. Group members, the group was silent for a long time. Emmanuel finally asked, then, School Bell, what do you need? I plan to rule this planet as a zombie, or at least occupy a part of it. But I can't stand the way they bite people and eat their internal organs. It's a bit disgusting. Chapter 366. Tangguo explained the situation of her body, asking if there was a way to keep all the zombies in a normal state. Emmanuel, the Campus Belle's way of thinking is really different from ordinary people. I just looked through our interstellar records. Zombies can reach the state that the Campus Belle said through evolution. We haven't studied that kind of drug in the interstellar. According to interstellar history, the zombies on our side were the last ones to be killed. So, you mean that as long as they level up, they can regain their sanity? Yes, there are records of this in interstellar history. It is said that at that time, there were zombies who completely recovered their sanity. They looked similar to ordinary people. The baptism of the virus also brought them benefits. Their physical strength were stronger than human beings. It is also recorded that there was a recovered zombie who was not killed in the end. He hid and lived an ordinary life. Emmanuel didn't know why, but he compared this zombie with the Campus Belle and thought that the other party had no ambition at all and was a coward. Tangguo continued to ask, what do they need to level up? They don't have the consciousness to actively absorb energy. Emmanuel continued to look through the interstellar history. After a long time, he said excitedly, they can level up by eating crystal nuclei. According to the Campus Belle, the zombies have just broken out. There shouldn't be any second-level zombies yet, so there shouldn't be any crystal nuclei. Tangguo was silent for a moment and said, I have a lot. It wasn't the first time she came to the apocalypse, but it was different this time. She was muddle-headed and came to the apocalypse to play an excellent supporting role. Unfortunately, the status of the supporting role wasn't low, so she had a lot of crystal nuclei, all of which were placed in the system space as waste. After Tang Guo left the group, the people in the group began to discuss. Ziyunjinren, I don't know when the campus belle will come to my plane. I really want to see her. Qi Shaojinren, I second that. Demon Sovereign, I second that. Margaret, if the campus belle is willing to come to the magical world, I will prepare the best gift to welcome her. Harold, me too. Alan, I can personally make a holy sword for the campus belle. Emmanuel, campus belle should come to our interstellar world. You can enjoy the high-tech that other planes can't. Tangua faced the 20 or so zombies in front of her, who were sitting in rows, and took out many crystal cores of different colors from the system space. Different colors represented different attributes. Pick what you like. She only had a guess at first, but then she saw that every zombie basically chose one color, and only one person chose two colors. She was sure that this zombie who had chosen two different colored nuclei was a dual attribute zombie. The whole room was filled with the sound of zombies chewing on nuclei. Compared to watching them gnaw on organs, Tangguo felt that this scene was much more beautiful. She paid special attention to the zombie with two different attributes. According to her observation, this zombie's abilities were outstanding in all aspects, and could become a general under her, helping her to achieve her goal of ruling zombies. Therefore, she was not stingy and took out the high-level crystal core for him to swallow. Finally, a month later, a ray of light burst out from the zombie's body. Its originally tattered skin recovered its rosy color, and it looked almost like a human being. Its eyes also regained their luster. The moment he recovered, he came before Tangua, knelt down on one knee, and respectfully called out, "Your Majesty." Chapter 367. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Wu Chu was the zombie who had regained his consciousness. He also remembered the past, but that wasn't important. The only thing he wanted to do was to be loyal to the woman in front of him, his king. Yes, I will definitely complete it. He would definitely create a zombie empire that would satisfy his king. She should stand at the top of this world. Tangua took out a storage ring and threw it to him. These are the crystal nuclei I gave you in the early days. They are all under your command. In the future, if they are obedient, you can absorb them. If they are disobedient, kill them and dig out their crystal nuclei. All members of the team are not allowed to attack humans for no reason or eat internal organs. If there are humans who want to die, don't be polite. Just blow their heads off. Tangua's mouth curved into a smile. She is a zombie, how can she harm the interests of the zombie race? But in order to live peacefully with humans in the future, she didn't intend to kill the innocent. She didn't want to turn the world into zombies. It was meaningless. After telling Wu Chu what to do, Tangua set off. A month had passed. According to the original track, Yan Yi had become a very outstanding member of the Espers. Because of his interaction with Yan Yan, he gradually had a good impression of her. Currently, the two of them were in a small base, doing missions to kill zombies every day. The base they were in was called Base 7. It was a base built by the officials of a city. It had only been a month since the outbreak of zombies. Many people hadn't realized the chaos and were covered by panic. Many people were willing to have the protection of a base. Even Espers weren't that ambitious at this time. Tangguo flipped through the plot and decided on the place where she would appear. A food factory occupied by zombies. Yan Yi and Yan Yan confirmed their relationship at this time. There was a level 3 zombie here. At this time, most Espers were only level 2. The two of them had gone through life and death and realized that they were important to each other, so they were together. Tanghua arrived earlier than Yan Yi's Sunshine team. She had already tamed the level 3 zombie in the food factory and was very obedient. He was rocking his body as he helped her cook instant noodles. While eating instant noodles, Tanghua threw a lot of crystal nuclei to the zombie. Eat them and level up quickly. In 2 days, 2 people will come to beat you up, in case you can't beat them. The zombie's dull eyes moved. He took the crystal nucleus and stuffed it into his mouth. It was as if he was born to understand the meaning of being beaten up. An ominous glint appeared in his eyes, and he became even more enthusiastic about eating the crystal cores. Within 2 days, the level 3 zombies became level 4 zombies. Although he still looked miserable on the surface, his agility and strength had increased a lot. For example, the speed of cooking noodles for Tanghua was much faster. After she finished eating, she found a clean place to lay down and chatted with the people in the group. He was extremely happy. Most of the food in the food factory had been taken away by her. She still left some for Yan Yi and the others. She didn't take any of the spicy strips. She left all the spicy strips for them. System, host, you're still naughty. 3 days passed like this. The system notified her that Yan Yi's Sunshine team had arrived. Tanghua hadn't tamed the zombies outside. The Sunshine team had to kill the zombies before they could come in to take the food. Do you see that? It's the man and woman in front. Find a chance to beat them up later. Chapter 368. The zombies stared at Yan Yan and Yan Yi fiercely. Both of them were creeped out, as if they were being stared at by something terrible. Brother Yan, be careful. Yan Yan said worriedly. The world of zombies was really scary. If she hadn't gotten the jade pendant and practiced the technique inside, she wouldn't have ended up better than the original owner. She pulled Yan Yi's sleeve. I feel that it's very dangerous here. Let's go together. Yan Yi nodded. Looking at Yan Yan's worried face, he couldn't help holding her hand. Don't worry. I'll protect you. Yan Yan blushed and wanted to break free. Brother Yan, don't be like this. If Tanghua sees this, she'll be unhappy. After all, you're still an engaged couple. Don't mention her. Whether I can see her again or not, our relationship ended when she left. Yan Yan didn't agree. Her eyes were wandering, but she was wondering if Tanghua was alive or dead. There were more than 20 zombies in the pharmacy. Tanghua hadn't awakened her ability yet. She might be in danger. No matter what, her fate had changed. There was no problem for her to survive. Yan Yi was an excellent man. Perhaps she could consider it. Tanghua was sitting in the dark. When she heard the conversation between the two, a faint smile appeared on her face. She was very unhappy. The Sunshine team fought their way into the food factory. When they saw countless packets of spicy strips, their expressions were twisted. Yan Yi frowned. They're all spicy strips. Yes, Captain. They're all spicy strips. We've searched many places. There's nothing else except spicy strips. I tasted it just now. It's dry and spicy. Yan Yi's expression was ugly. They spent 2 hours fighting their way in, but all they got were spicy strips. Is this a food factory that only produces spicy strips? Yan Yan was a bit strange. How could such a big food factory only produce spicy strips? Yan Yi said, maybe someone came and took away the other food, leaving only these spicy strips. Spicy strips were quite appetizing, but in the apocalypse, they weren't nutritious. They didn't fill their stomachs. It wasn't a good thing for them, who were short on food. Nyen Nyen, keep the spicy strips in your space and sell them to others when we reach the base. Yen Nyen revealed his strength and space abilities. In fact, she was cultivating a cultivation method and had not awakened any special abilities. The space was just the space of the jade pendant. Just when everyone was collecting the spicy strips, there was a loud bang, and a zombie rushed in crazily. Level 3 Zombie. The zombie's intelligence was already that of an 8-year-old. When he heard the other party call him a level 3 zombie, his eyes flashed. He remembered that the king had said that level 3 strength on the surface was enough. Later, the people on the other side would erupt with level 3 ability users. Then, he would beat this group of people up, pretend that he couldn't beat them, and run away. Although he didn't know why the king wanted him to do this, the king's words were the imperial edict. The zombie jumped into the crowd, grabbed a member of the Sunshine Squad with each hand, and casually threw them outside. He didn't understand why the king didn't want him to kill these people, but he didn't think too much about it. The king wanted him to beat up these two people who looked especially annoying. Tangua moved a chair and sat in the dark, watching the zombie throw the Sunshine Squad outside, except for Yen Yi and Yen Yen. Then she communicated with the scattered zombies outside and asked them to surround the food factory so that no one could come in. She looked deeply at Yen Yi and Yen Yen and mouthed, "The game officially begins." Chapter 369. Boom. Boom. Brother Yen, are you okay? Yen Yen quickly rolled to the other side. The zombie jumped high and slapped her away. She hit the wall hard and screamed. Yen Yi was beaten to the other side by the zombie. The two of them were in a sorry state with bruises all over their faces. Seeing the zombie walking towards Yen Yen, Yen Yi couldn't help but reveal his level 3 power and rushed towards the zombie. He thought that it would be easy to fight a level 3 zombie. He didn't expect it. The zombie's eyes flashed with an ominous light. It ran very fast. It jumped up and kicked Yen Yi in the chest. It was a heavy blow. Yen Yi spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out. He crashed heavily on the ground with a loud sound. Tangguo was eating melon seeds and commented, "This move is clean and neat." Not bad. The zombie didn't forget Tangguo's words. He wanted to beat this woman up. He walked up to Yen Yen, lifted her collar with his bloody claws, and slapped her face a few times. After a while, Yen Yen's face was swollen. Her original beauty couldn't be seen at all. Brother Yen. Yen Yen didn't understand why this zombie liked to hit her face. She hadn't cultivated for long. There was nothing else in the space except the spiritual spring, the land, and the cultivation technique. This zombie's strength was beyond what she could accept. She couldn't resist at all. Yen Yi got up from the ground and saw that Yen Yen's face was swollen. He was furious and rushed towards the zombie. The zombie threw Yen Yen away and started to beat Yen Yi. The fierceness in his eyes turned into excitement. He felt the king's joy and beat Yen Yi even more ruthlessly. So, zombies are actually very cute creatures. Tangguo smiled, feeling wonderful. At this moment, she felt a gaze. She looked in the direction of the gaze and saw a man standing there. The man had deep facial features and was handsome. He gave off a cold feeling. But she could see that there was no malice in his eyes. She ate a melon seed and had no intention of getting up. She glanced at Yen Yi, who was still being beaten up, and asked, "Who are you?" The man walked towards her and sized her up. "Shurcheng. I don't know him." Tangguo narrowed her eyes. Why was Shurcheng here? Host, Shurcheng's soul is abnormal. As for why, I can't detect it. But I can feel that he has no ill intentions towards you. Tangguo raised her eyebrows and didn't care. She continued to watch Yan Yi and Yan Nian being beaten by zombies with interest. Shi Cheng stood beside her without saying a word. He was also watching the two of them being beaten up. "Do you want to come with me?" Shi Cheng asked after a long while. Tangguo felt a little strange. She found it funny. "Why should I go with you?" Shi Cheng was silent. He thought for a while and said, "You need a place to survive. I can protect you so that you won't be bullied in the apocalypse." These words made Tangguo even more amused. What did this person mean? Why? Shi Cheng didn't say anything. He couldn't possibly tell her that if she continued to get involved with Yan Yi might end up shooting her in the head. That's right, he was reborn. In his previous life, he occupied half of the country. He always had a regret in his heart that he didn't stop Yan Yi from killing Tangguo at the last moment. If he had taken Tangguo away from the beginning, such a tragedy wouldn't have happened in the end. He didn't know why he, who had always been cold-hearted, felt sad when he saw that woman die with a smile. Chapter 370. Seeing that the two of them were beaten half to death, Yan Yan finally couldn't take it anymore. She hadn't dared to expose her space, for fear of attracting covetous eyes. Now that Yan Yi couldn't hold on any longer, she planned to use the spiritual spring to water the zombies. She had tried it before, and the zombies would be injured. As soon as she thought about it, the zombie's eyes moved and he quickly jumped away. Yan Yan stared at the disappearing zombie in shock, feeling very depressed. She had never seen such a zombie before. It left after beating her up. How despicable. The zombie left because he had just heard Tangguo say, "Come back." Without any hesitation, his figure flashed and returned to Tangguo's side. Shi Cheng was still vigilant when he saw the zombie suddenly appear. The zombie also stared at him warily. Tangguo waved her hand, and the zombie stood beside her obediently with a fawning expression. Shi Cheng was a bit surprised. Was she so powerful? Although he knew her identity, he was still shocked to see her use these abilities with his own eyes. He didn't understand why such a powerful woman would choose to self-destruct in the end. He didn't suspect Tangguo's abnormality at all. If Tangguo had also been reborn, she wouldn't have mobilized the zombies just to beat Yan Yi up. She might have killed Yan Yan directly. He thought that Tangguo was so miserable because she couldn't figure it out. He didn't understand the feelings between men and women. It should be a more complicated thing. Tangguo watched excitedly as Yan Yan helped Yan Yi up. "Brother Yan, are you okay?" "I'm fine. That zombie is very strange." Yan Yi frowned deeply. "His goal seems to be to come up and beat us up." The two of them didn't understand and left with each other's help. The zombies outside were dispersed by Tangguo when it was over. She shared with the system in a good mood. "I realized that building a zombie empire was a very wise decision. Thinking about how countless humans will survive under the protection of zombies in the future, I feel very emotional. System, as long as the host is happy." Tangguo was already used to this system that was getting better and better at flattering her. "Are you really not coming with me?" Shi Cheng was unwilling to give up. He didn't want this woman to end up in a miserable state. In this life, he had been reborn. He had established the Sunset Base early on, and it was now very powerful. As for why he happened to be here, he also came for the food factory. He did not expect to meet Tangguo here. "No." Tangguo shook her head. "I still have things to do. To find Yan Yi." Shi Cheng looked at her as if she was being stubborn. Tangguo felt that this man was especially interesting. "You rushed up to me and said that you would protect me and want me to go with you. Have you fallen for my beauty and fallen in love with me? Shirching froze for a moment and frowned. No, don't overthink it. You weren't captivated by my beauty. Shirching was speechless. Since you're not captivated by my beauty, I won't go with you. Tanggua stood up. You don't have any designs on me, and you don't even like me. Why should I go with you? Shirching was speechless. Why didn't he realize in his previous life that she was an unreasonable woman? She was indeed very beautiful, even more beautiful than when he saw her in his previous life. He blamed this on Yan Yi. Yes, it was Yan Yi who made her look less beautiful. If you go with me, I could try to like you. Shirching had been holding it in for a long time and said something against his will. Chapter 371. I'm the woman who's going to unify the zombie empire. Why should I go with you? This was what Tanggua said to Shirching. He was stunned. What did this woman say? She's going to unify the zombie empire? I'll have all kinds of men in the future. When the zombie empire is established, I'll hold a concubine selection contest. I'll have all kinds of men to choose from. Why should I wait for you to like me? After saying this, Tanggua abandoned Shirching and left. Boss. When Shirchang's subordinates found him, he was staring at the place where the woman had been sitting. She seemed a little different from what he remembered. Boss, it seems that the supplies here have been taken away. The subordinates saw that Shirchang's expression didn't look too good. Why don't we go somewhere else to take a look? Okay. Shirching nodded and clenched his fists. Develop Sunset Base as soon as possible. Since that woman didn't want to go with him, he would develop his forces first. There was still time anyway. When Yan Yi handed her over, he would take her away. Thinking of this, Shirchang's lips curled up. It wasn't that he had to persuade her to come. If she was hurt by Yan Yi in the future, she wouldn't think of him anymore. Shirching felt much better. He seemed to have found his goal since his rebirth. The subordinate didn't quite understand why his boss, who had a bad expression just now, suddenly became more enthusiastic about developing his forces. No matter what, this was a good thing. Tanggua walked to Base 7 with the level 4 zombie by her side. She planned to raise this zombie to level 5 before entering Base 7. Level 5 zombies had the consciousness of a normal person, but they still couldn't look like a normal person. However, this zombie was still considered clean. Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't be obvious if it changed its clothes. Of course, it was impossible to bring it into the base. As for herself, it wouldn't be a problem for her to enter the base. Wu Chu was a level 7 zombie. When it was upgraded to level 7, it could regain its consciousness and look like a normal person. To create one Wu Chu, she had basically used up all the high-level crystal nuclei she had. She couldn't upgrade this zombie to level 7. Meng Zheng, after I enter the base, you can't follow me anymore. If you ask me, you'd better go find Wu Chu and work for him. Meng Zheng, the level 5 zombie, shook his head. He remembered the woman in front of him from the moment the other zombies regained their consciousness. Somehow, he subconsciously called her Queen, but he didn't understand why. He was already a zombie, and in the future, he would only live for the king. He only had admiration and loyalty in his heart, and he would never dare to blaspheme her. Tanggua also found that all the zombies who had regained their consciousness were loyal to her. She had never taught them how to address her as king, but when they woke up, that was how they addressed her. Perhaps she understood why this body was a regenerative body. It was a natural zombie king that could command all zombies. This knowledge made her very happy. Then you wait outside the base and take in the obedient zombies. Leave the disobedient ones alone. She wasn't so kind-hearted as to help those people clean up the zombies and let them live a peaceful life. Without experiencing the cruelty of the apocalypse, how could they understand that the future zombie empire would be a pure land? Just like that, Tang Guo left Meng Jing outside Base 7. She went through layers of checks and entered Base 7. She filled in as a normal person and was assigned to the normal section. Chapter 372. The ordinary people in the common area were not given any food. If they wanted to get food, they had to work. The base provided them with a small house as accommodation, but this small house could only be used for free for half a month. After half a month, they had to pay the accommodation fee. The accommodation fee here was crystallic nuclei and food, of which the crystallic nuclei were the most precious. The news of a very beautiful woman in the common area spread throughout the base in less than 2 days. After Tang Guo walked out, many people looked at her with pity. She raised the corner of her mouth. This was the post-apocalyptic world. Beautiful women without awakened abilities could only survive by relying on the strong. Otherwise, their end would be very miserable. As soon as she came out, she was stopped by a big man, who looked at her with lustful eyes. "Follow me. Little beauty, if you follow me, you can get a lot of food and won't be bullied by others." Perhaps because Tang Guo was too beautiful, the big man spoke softly. Tang Guo showed a timid look and said in a low voice, "No, I have a fiancé. I heard that my fiancé is here, so I came to find him." System, Drama Queen host is online. She kept clenching her hands. Seeing that many people were looking at her, her eyes flashed with fear. Her delicate and pitiful appearance really made the men around her feel itchy. Seeing that more and more people were paying attention, the big man came over and grabbed Tang Guo's wrist. "Follow me back, I guarantee you won't have to worry about food and clothing." Robberies like this often happened in the base. The others whispered. There were also a few men who were interested in Tang Guo. They were all considering whether they should make a move for such a woman. In the post-apocalyptic world, not to mention women, even beautiful men had no human rights. They couldn't control their own fate. In the face of a strong ability user, they could only choose to submit or die. This kind of phenomenon became more and more common with the development of the post-apocalyptic world. Later, when they found that there were fewer and fewer women, they raised women as a special biosphere. They became pets. Even if there were many strong ability users in the post-apocalyptic world who were women, there was no way to change the situation. Because those beautiful men who didn't have any special skills or awakened abilities were just bed warmers for the strong. In such a society without a system, there were also many women who would support several men. They were strong, so why should they change the status quo? That is, unless something happened that affected their interests. Facing a group of men who were eyeing her covetously, the weak little girl who was surrounded in the middle was so scared that her body trembled. This scene made the men want to take her in. At this moment, she heard a voice not far away. "What's going on over there?" "I heard that a very beautiful woman came, and those people took a fancy to her." Yan Yi's expression became much colder. He only said, "Yes." He did not intend to meddle in other people's business. Yan Yi. Just as he was about to turn and leave, a familiar voice came from behind him. Yan Yi froze. He would never forget this voice. He would never forget it. Who else could it be but his fiancée who had abandoned him in the villa? He suppressed the anger in his heart. With a cold smile on his face, he turned around and walked over. Many people in the base knew Yan Yi. When they saw him coming, they all made way for him. The little woman in the middle was exposed. When Yan Yi saw that familiar face, he sneered. So that beautiful woman was his good fiancée. Chapter 373. I finally found you. Tang Guo broke free from the man's hand. Seeing that she knew Yan Yi, the man did not dare to grab her again. Looking at the woman's back, his eyes flashed with regret. Yan Yi expressionlessly looked at the pitiful woman running towards him with tears in her eyes. Why didn't he realize that his fiancée was so good at acting? He loved her so much, but she actually left him in the villa and left by herself. The woman threw herself into his arms, but he did not give her any expression. His heart was indifferent. He had long forgotten his feelings for her, leaving only hatred. Are you okay? Hearing the woman's concerned words, Yan Yi sneered and pushed her away. His voice was strange. Why, you thought I was dead. You didn't expect to see me here, did you? Was she disappointed, scared, or glad? Where did you go? I've been looking for you for a long time. That day, I left the villa to get the medicine for you. When I came back, you were gone. The woman's eyes were full of tears and her face was pale. You thought I was dead. Yan Yi's mouth curved into a cold smile. She really knew how to act. Get the medicine. She could even think of such a clumsy excuse. At that time, zombies surrounded the villa. Did she dare to go out to get the medicine? Even a mouse could scare this woman. How could she have the courage to rush out of the villa to get the medicine? What's wrong with you? I really want you to be alive. Because of this, I insisted on living and found this place. On the way here, I heard that there was a person called Yan Yi here. He is a very powerful ability user, so I came here. Yan Yi glanced at her and sneered. If you heard that there was a person called Yan Yi here, who did not awaken his ability and was always bullied, would you still come here? The woman was stunned for a moment and quickly said, of course I would come. No matter how sincere her expression was, Yan Yi would not believe it. He glanced at the surrounding men who were eyeing him covetously and narrowed his eyes. He wanted to leave her here directly. But thinking of how good this woman was at acting, as long as she was willing to put down her status to coax men, she could still live a good life in the apocalypse. If she threw him away, how could she still live a good life? Come with me. Yan Yi turned around coldly. He no longer had the gentleness from before. The woman seemed to have sensed something. Her eyes flashed with panic. I can already imagine his ending. Tang Guo looked uneasy and pitiful. She followed behind Yan Yi with small steps while discussing with the system. This is a wretch. I'll try to explain it a few more times. Host, I don't think that's necessary. He won't believe me. I think it's necessary to leave a deep impression on him. I want him to remember how I explained it to him today for the rest of his life. When the truth is revealed, he will suffer even more. The system shuddered. The host was indeed the host, a ruthless person. Yan Yi brought Tang Guo to his villa, which was filled with members of the Sunshine Squad. When they saw Yan Yi return with a beautiful woman, their eyes were filled with ridicule. However, one man showed malice towards Tang Guo and stared at her for a long time. Boss, why are you so kind? Where did you find this thing? Xiaoqing was the man who especially hated Tang Guo. Boss, don't tell me you brought her back because you miss her. Then what about Nian Nian? She likes you a lot. Chapter 374. Hearing this, Tang Guo raised her head and stared at Xiaoqing professionally. Her face was full of surprise and panic. She only glanced at Xiaoqing before looking at Yan Yi, as if she wanted him to confirm something. Yan Yi glanced at her lightly. We used to know each other. My ex-fiancé. Seeming to think of something, Yan Yi added. He didn't bring Tang Guo back to let her enjoy life. The look in Xiaoqing and the other members' eyes suddenly changed. The other members who didn't dislike Tang Guo also showed displeasure. They all knew that when Boss awakened his special ability, he was abandoned by his fiancée. If Yan Nian hadn't passed by, Boss might have died. This woman was really shameless. She still had the nerve to come here. Xiaoqing, arrange a place for her to live. She was my ex-fiancée. I can't let her starve to death here. Otherwise, I'll be laughed at. Yan Yi's attitude made Xiaoqing understand. Don't worry, boss. I won't let her starve to death. By the way, since you want to survive here without awakening an ability, Yan Yi looked at Tang Guo, the corners of his mouth slightly curved. The apocalypse doesn't raise idle people. Xiaoqing will arrange for you to do something within your power. Ah-ee. Tang Guo looked helpless and scolded in her heart. What do you mean by ex-fiancé? Yan Yi really didn't understand why this woman was so good at acting. She was still acting at this time. He didn't have the patience. He thought of another face in his mind and his expression softened. However, when he saw Tang Guo's beautiful face, he became cold again. He said gloomily, I'm already taking you in for the sake of our past relationship. Don't be ungrateful. Logically speaking, it was human nature for you to abandon me. After all, everyone is afraid. The funny thing was that he loved her so much and wanted to give her peace in the apocalypse. However, he was abandoned in the blink of an eye. It was this woman who made him understand the apocalypse and understood the true good and evil. They were both women. Why was she so different from Yan Nian? One had abandoned him, while the other had fearlessly brought him along. Ah-ee, you misunderstood. You had a high fever at that time. I really went to the pharmacy to get medicine. In order to get medicine, She was bitten by a zombie. People nowadays hated zombies. If she was exposed, she would definitely be chased away. Yan Yi chuckled. That's enough, Tang Guo. Our relationship ends here. If you want to live here, follow Xiaoqing's arrangement. Here, at least your face won't attract countless men to fight over you. Of course, if you want to live a carefree life, I won't stop you. There are many powerful ability users out there. With your looks, they won't reject you. Tang Guo took a step back and looked like she was about to collapse. She didn't understand how Yan Yi had become like this. Yan Yi went upstairs. He obviously didn't want to talk to her anymore. Tang Guo also heaved a sigh of relief. Acting as a love-struck weakling was a little boring. She still had to act for a while to leave an impression on Yan Yi. In the future, it would be even more unforgettable. When you hurt someone, it was never the physical body. It was stabbing a knife into the heart. The deeper you stabbed, the more painful it was. The highest level was to be in so much pain that you wished you were dead. You wanted to tear yourself apart piece by piece. This is where you live. Xiaoqing pointed to a small compartment in the corner of the stairs. It was originally used to store some goods, but this compartment was so small that it couldn't even fit a bed.